Two, hello. Check two. Check two. Is this working? We'll see. We will see. Hello, folks. What's up? It's me. It's me, your friend Rob. I'm back again, as I'm back every single day. Every single day of my life. Here I am. Exactly on time. Exactly on time every single day. We appear to be good so far. It didn't skip that time around at all. Before it was like 3 seconds in loading hell. We'll see how it goes. I'm like, this has been an ongoing thing with me for the last over a year. Weird internet issues. And I don't think it's my actual like internet router here. I think it's my PC. And it's like my PC needs, everything starts running perfectly and then it's fine. It's fine for like weeks, or it's even fine for months. But then anytime I have like a power flicker, or like if the router gets shut off and on again, something happens with my PC. I think it has something about the power supply in my PC not having enough power to give power to the Ethernet card and everything, and it's like it doesn't work. The router is not plugged into a power bar. I really don't think it's the router. I think it's my PC is the issue. And this morning I had a little power blip, and lo and behold, I have the same issues. I maybe have fixed it. We will see. We're going to see how it goes. If the stream crashes today, then I do apologize. It's probably a good idea, $4 TAM. I'm just going to eat my lunch. It's one of the Rob lunch streams that you know and love. I really cook so much, and it's like I really just now make variations of the same meal every time. Like, I've not been making any pasta, or well, I make noodles, but like I don't make any spaghetti or anything like that. I make some variations, like this is like a spicy pork and vegetables and rice. I just swap out the meat and swap out the grain. It's either rice or some kind of noodle. I'll have that. Sometimes I'll have a steak. Sometimes I'll have a steak and fry up some vegetables with that. But I really do variations of this meal. I make beef and broccoli. I make something like this. I make a ramen with like chicken thighs in there. It's some variations of the same thing. Throw some lao gan ma on top and some cilantro. Every time I take a picture of one of my meals, it just looks like a big mess of food with a bunch of cilantro and chili crisp on top, which is really like a cheat code to improving your meals by about 35%. You just throw the cilantro and lao gan ma on top of whatever it is, and it's going to be really good. It's like me, I cycle through 24 different variations of beans on toast. Unfortunately, that's in the UK. That's all you're allowed to eat. Government mandate. Have you had your daily allotment of beans on toast today? You'd be paying $15 for that otherwise, for sure, yeah. Absolutely. And sometimes that's nice. Sometimes that's nice to do. But I really enjoy cooking. I really do. There's something really satisfying about eating something that you made. And there's something really satisfying about the process to me as well. The process of doing it. I find it really like calming. It's like, it's productive, you know. It's good. I would like to do a cooking stream, actually. I don't totally know how I would make that work, but I would like to do that. Why not eat with a spoon? I don't know. I feel like when I eat with chopsticks, it, first of all, I don't get it all over me. I'm okay so far. I'm all right so far. I find it makes me a little more methodical in my eating too. Sometimes I eat too quickly and I don't savor things or enjoy them. If I have a spoon, I'm just like, just shovel it in there, you know? I take no time to really enjoy what I'm doing, or I just go into a fugue state. I go into a fugue state and just the food is gone and I'm like, what even just happened? I kind of wake up and I'm like, what the hell's going on? What is this? This is really good. I feel like I've improved a lot. I've improved a lot over the last year. Getting a real wok really has been a game changer for me. Which I think I've already talked about. No, the wok is not. It's a real one. It's a real one, like really the half sphere, not flat bottom. And I love it. I use it, if not every day, probably 4 times a week. Gas is supposed to be dangerous if you're a basement apartment. Well, I don't have a gas stove. I know some people are really like adamant about the gas stove and having the flame and the heating element. I am fine. I am fine with my electric stove. I find it totally acceptable. The wok gets hot, you know. I'm able to cook things on there. It's fine with me. I would really like to do a cooking stream sometime. I would really like that. I would need to figure out how that would work with my phone and everything. It would be fun though. For the veg in this, I just fried up some bok choy. Chopped that up and fried that with some sesame oil and soy sauce. And then added in just a bunch of frozen veg. Just a bunch of frozen veg. And a bit of water to get the like steam going. Then I chopped up, I got just like a super cheap pork chop. I chopped that up. I left it in some sesame oil and some soy sauce. Added a bunch of garlic powder, paprika, pepper. And then when all the veg is done, then you put that in last. Then you add the rice, you add the lao gan ma, of course. And the cilantro. It's food hour. That's right, Nikki. Do you having any lunch today? I don't know what time zone you're in. Nikki Bex, what's your lunch situation? Talk to us. You want to hear about this? The chopsticks do get tricky when it's the last of the bowl. I will admit that. That's really when I want the spoon. When you get down to the last little bit. I'm in CST. I don't know what I'm going to do for lunch. Okay, well, keep us posted. Keep us posted, please. We're going to watch this space. I have no idea what CST is. I'm not sure. Sorry, I live in the real time zone. I live in the real time zone, Eastern Standard Time, so sometimes I'm a little confused about these other made up time zones. Falun Gong is getting airtime on CPAC to spread anti-CCP propaganda. I read something the other day that the Epoch Times is like the 4th most read news outlet in America now. You're not the first streamer to tell me CST is a fake time zone. I'm sorry. I'm a EST supremacist. Yeah, the Epoch Times is like the 4th most read and most viewed.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob, did you see that Ken stole your bit about using the nickname for U.S. cities incorrectly?
No, I did not see that, Plunger Man. But thank you for the 25 months tier 2. I don't even think that's my bit. I think I lifted that from someone as well. So I think, unfortunately, regretfully, we're going to let Ken get away with this one. Chin chin. Actually read or just given out? Well, I mean, I guess that's the question. The thing that I saw, 4th largest newspaper. Like the thing that I saw I think it was like actual people that are media people that measure that. I mean, people do read it though. Like it's widely circulated. Okay, no, so it's most subscribed to, not given out for free. Not given out for free. It's the 4th most subscribed to newspaper in the United States. Isn't that fucking crazy? It's amazing how it's like America's own like psyops. They get out of hand. This seems to be yet another one of those cases. The 4th largest paper in the United States, a dicey right-wing rag run by Chinese religious group Falun Gong. Once a name known only to readers on the fringe, the Epoch Times jumped on the bandwagon of former President Donald Trump in 2020 and has since become the 4th largest newspaper in the United States. I have non-stop Epoch Times ads on Twitter. NBC News' Brandizar Zadrodzny has a deep dive into the strange origins of the Epoch Times, which has become a right-wing favorite as well as the go-to media source for conspiracy theorists such as presidential candidate RFK Jr. That's how much he's against Empire. He supports the Epic Times. And while this is not the first time NBC has dug into the mystical backers of the Epic Times, which began as a humble anti-communist leaflet in China distributed by a religious group called Falun Gong, it is news to find out how well it's doing, and it's doing very, very well. The non-profit. So again, we're not just talking about giving out free newspapers. If that was the case, then like Counterpunch would be the most widely circulated newspaper, or the Fight Back, or whatever it is. The Fight Back people would have the most widely circulated newspaper, considering at every single event, whatever it has to do with them, they're out there promoting their papers and their whatever. The nonprofit, so again, we're not just talking about free papers being distributed to people. The nonprofit has amassed a fortune, growing its revenue by a staggering 685% in 2 years to $122 million in 2021, according to the group's most recent tax records. The group reported $76 million in subscription revenue in 2021, compared to $7 million in 2019. A former employee of a regional Epic Times operation who asked not to be identified because he feared retribution said that in order to send the papers to the most likely customers, they bought lists of addresses from data brokers, specifically for conservatives aged 60 and over, and many of the new subscribers are seniors, according to an employee's account shared on a Falun Gong conference. It's so evil. They targeted these seniors, especially like conservatives and like Trump, just jumping on the Trump thing. And it is working incredibly well. These people all are gams, and whoever is are all over this now. They love the Falun Gong. They love Falun Gong now. So yeah, again, in case you thought it was just like, oh, they give out a lot of free newspapers, like it's subscription numbers. In terms of subscription numbers, paid subscriptions, the fourth biggest newspaper in the United States. Okay, I'm getting spicy pork, bibimbap, and cucumber kimchi from a place down the street from me. Nikki, huge fan of Korean food over here. What a great choice. I live in a very heavily Korean neighborhood, and I get Korean food all the time. What a wonderful choice, Nikki. Good job. Hello, Joe 110. What is up? Excuse me. I had a coworker who read the Epic Times and said God told her to quit. Well, maybe that was, in that case, sometimes they do some good things. Oh. I'm convinced that Falun Gong election interference activity is being misattributed to the CCP. Well, not even being misattributed, but it's just amazing what we consider political interference and what we don't. Foreign interference. When it's coming from a fringe, extreme right-wing religious cult, then it's actually fine to do foreign interference. You know, when another country engages in like basic diplomacy, they're like, wow, how dare you? How dare you have like community centers for the Chinese diaspora where people can go and like learn to speak English and like learn different languages. They're secret police stations. Oh, what? A right-wing religious cult is the fourth most subscribed to newspaper, excuse me, in America? Yeah, no problem. That's good, actually. We like that. Excuse me. The political ads on Twitter are going to be wild for the election, considering the low tier ads they have now. Absolutely. I saw the story today about all the banks that loaned Elon money to buy Twitter are all like fucked now. That's interesting as well. There's still some good news coming through. Yeah, and of course Americans aren't included in foreign interference, nor is Israel, for that matter. When Israel interferes in our politics, we're like, please more, please more. May I have some more? We talk like fucking Oliver Twist all of a sudden. May we have some more? May we have some more election interference? Then we think it's good. Yeah, probably not a good idea to link to that, Comrade Social Distancing. Just like whatever credibility any of these channels had, Israel War Room or whatever. I don't know if that's officially connected to the government or not. But whatever the credibility they might have had, which for me was already in the toilet, they've blown through any we should maybe hear what they have to say on this one, and then put on our critical thinking caps. Like, I'm sorry, I just do not believe anything. I do not believe anything that comes out of this this propaganda apparatus. Canada tried not to side with fascist challenge. Impossible. It's almost like we kind of agree and sympathize with that a little bit, that ideology. Sometimes doesn't it kind of feel like that? I don't want to be too controversial here. Sometimes it feels a little bit like Canada actually supports fascism, which is weird because that's totally contrary to what I was told about this country for my whole life. Isn't that weird? So weird. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. And frankly, just like no matter what it's impossible to know like what's real and what's made up. Like I said, I think it's the point where we need to start disbelieving everything that comes from the Zionist propaganda apparatus. Anything that comes out of that, we have to immediately distrust. Number one. But like when the last figure that I saw was I think something like 2,700 children since October 7th. You don't have the moral high ground. There's no evidence, there's nothing you could show me that would be like, okay, well, I guess it makes sense. I guess Israel does have a right to defend itself. No. Like, you do not have the moral high ground. When you've killed now thousands of kids since October 7th. And talking about babies, like there's babies in the NICU in Gaza. There's, women that are pregnant that are trying to like give birth in this situation that's running out of medicine, running out of fuel, running out of supplies. If you actually cared about babies, you would not be engaging in this. The very fact that you're engaging in this grotesque mass murder campaign shows me that you don't actually care if babies are harmed or not. What was your take on the NDP ousting Jama? It's just pathetic. I mean, that's my take. We talked about it the other day. It's cowardly. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's a disgrace. It's preposterous. Like what words can I use? You know, Jama's statement, which she was incredibly brave to put out, right when all the propaganda was really blowing up, was incredibly brave to take this stance. To correctly, nothing she said was in any way wrong or controversial in any way. It's only controversial in our completely fucked, backwards, sick society where people, when like this kind of violence happens, you can't correctly frame that in the institutions of settler colonialism and apartheid and talk about like the human rights advocates and people in the UN that have correctly identified it as being apartheid. It was an incredibly brave thing to do to point this out. Nothing she said was wrong. Nothing she said was controversial. And the fact that the NDP couldn't just stand with her is just humiliating. Honestly, it's fucking embarrassing. I sympathize for her too much, but she really shouldn't have apologized. Well, this is the thing, Joe. It's just like you can't appease these people. You cannot. Like, this should be the ultimate example. You can't back down. You cannot ever back down to these kind of pressure campaigns. There is no combination of words, whether it's Sarah Jamaa or anyone else that's losing their jobs right now, losing their livelihoods over basic moral stances in support of Palestine. There is no combination of words you can use that are going to appease these people and say like, oh, okay, well, we'll stop now. They don't actually care. They're not even offended. They don't actually care. They just want people to be afraid to speak up. That is all. That is all. And it's highly successful. Like, there are so many examples now. There's the York University thing. The York University Student Union is getting in all kinds of trouble. They're facing a lawsuit right now over their morally correct stance on this. There's people losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods. There is no combination of words you can use. And in fact, it was Felix from Chapo Trap House that had a tweet to this effect the other day, which I thought put this kind of concept into words really well. Responding to this guy, Michael Eisen, who got being replaced as the editor-in-chief of eLife for retweeting an Onion piece that calls out indifference to the lives of Palestinian civilians. I thought this was a really good way of making this concept easy to understand. Nothing anyone says will ever be measured, qualified, or even handed enough for people making demands of you. There's no perfect set of words that will save anyone from this stuff, because it's not about that. No one's offended. They just want you to be afraid. Like, this is what I've come to believe about this subject, but this applies to like any kind of political commentary. You gain nothing. You gain nothing by backing down. You gain nothing by watering down your position, by disavowing large parts of your movement, denouncing all the bad guys and condemning all the baddies that they want you to condemn. There's nothing you can say. There is nothing at all that you can say that's going to appease these people and be like, okay, you're just standing up for Palestinians. That's okay. We get it. That is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to say anything about that, to talk about apartheid, to talk about bombing kids, to talk about Gaza, the open air prison camp. There's no way that you can couch that criticism in this like rhetoric that's going to make these people say like, okay, well, we don't agree, but we'll let you say this. There's nothing you can say. And frankly, it's something that I wanted to talk about today, So I guess it's a good way to get into that. Because this is the idea of like weaponizing anti-Semitism in order to shut down any criticism of Israel whatsoever. It's really something that I've thought a lot about for the last 5 years, that I've been really paying close attention to this stuff. And that's what the Corbyn thing was about. That's what all the hysteria about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, when Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, that's all it was ever about. It was about this. It's about, we cannot have someone leading a major party in the West that says things like this, that talks about Palestinians, that organizes with Palestinians, that marches with Palestinians, that criticizes empire, whether it's in Israel, Palestine, or whether it's in Syria, or whether it's in Libya, or wherever else. We couldn't have someone leading a major party that had this viewpoint. That's what the anti-Semitism hysteria was about. And like I said, for a lot of people in the UK, there were even people that were part of the Corbyn movement were really intimidated by this. And you saw people for years trying to equivocate and trying to say like, oh, of course I support Corbyn, but we really do need to talk about this anti-Semitism problem. We need to show these people making this accusation that we're serious about this. We need to display the proper level of like contrition to the people that are throwing around these kind of accusations. And once we let them know that we hear them, we hear their concerns, and we're working on addressing it, and we're working on being better, and we apologize for all the people that we need to apologize to, and once we do that, then they'll take our project seriously. But no, that's not what it was ever about. It was not ever. There was not ever about that. Just like right now, there's no combination of words that can use that's going to make people accept your criticism of Israeli apartheid or ethnic cleansing or settler colonialism. There's no combination of words that's going to make people comfortable with that. Just like with Corbyn, there was nothing that you could ever say or do to make these people say, oh, okay, now we get it. We accept your apology. Now just go move on. Because once you're on the defensive, it's not just about Corbyn. It's not just about Israel right now. But I think this is about any of these major issues. People don't only just weaponize anti-Semitism, like about Israel stuff, but they weaponize human rights in general. They weaponize LGBTQ plus rights. It's not even just about Israel. Like I was saying, don't single out Israel. We don't even have to. We can talk about Israel. We can talk about Syria. We can talk about Iraq, Afghanistan. It's the same thing every time. You have your criticism of empire, and but of course Saddam is bad, but of course the Taliban is bad, but of course I denounce Assad, and I would never dream of associating myself with that. But of course I denounce Hamas, but there's nothing you can say. There's absolutely nothing you can say. And in fact, as soon as you're on the defensive and saying like, no, I'm not a Assadist. I just don't think we should be arming Al Qaeda in Syria. And of course I denounce the war crimes of Assad, but we shouldn't be. Or of course I denounce Hamas and I denounce the Hamas atrocities. But we also need to talk about Israel. As soon as you're on the defensive like that, you've lost. That's when they know they've got you. That's when they know they have something that can hurt you. You know what I mean? Once you show that level of contrition, you try to play their game, play this respectability game, then they know they have something that can hurt you. Putting you on the back foot. Exactly. This is what we have to reject now. No more of this. For me personally, that's been my stance. No more going on the defensive. No more going on the back foot. Never again. Hello, Husker. What's up? This is really important, I think. Going on the back foot, going on the defensive, trying to appease these people, whether it comes to Israel or Syria or whatever other proxy, like Western imperialist proxy you want to talk about. Ukraine. No more going on the defensive. For me, anyways. And I hope for you as well. But listen to what he says. Like, there's no one talking like this. No one. No political leader. There's a few people that have shown a small amount of courage. And Rashida Tlaib as well is someone that I would say has refused to back down on this. There's people like that she caucuses with that have had varying degrees of success talking about it, but like Corbyn is the guy that's really like, and for Corbyn, despite everything that has cost him, this advocacy, he refuses to give in. I think he was too nice when he was the leader of the Labour Party. Certainly he was too nice, and he was being sabotaged from within, and a lot of his so-called supporters were willing to play this kind of respectability game, and they just dragged his whole movement down into this back and forth, and legitimized all the totally bad faith complaints that there was. All the bad faith accusations about being supporting of terrorism and being anti-Semitic, they just legitimized all that. Even people that thought they were helping Corbyn. It says an entire culture, history, and people are disappearing under the rubble, buried by the moral cowardice of our political leaders, artists whose work we will never know, teachers whose lessons we will never learn, children whose laughter we will never hear. We must keep raising our voice for immediate ceasefire, for the universal application of international law, for our shared humanity. for the only path to a just and lasting peace and end to the occupation of Palestine. This is why they called Corbyn an anti-Semite, and I don't want to hear any more equivocations about this. But there was a Facebook post from 2004 but he wrote the foreword in a book. No, this is what it was about. That is all. It was a fucking scam. The Labour Party cared so much about anti-Semitism that they purged anti-Zionist elderly Jewish women from their ranks. I'll never forget that the night the smear of anti-Semitism against Corbyn began, he was literally sharing Passover Seder with British Jewish anti-Zionist group Judas. I mean, this is ultimately what we're talking about. This is something that I really wanted to talk about today, Husker. This weaponization of anti-Semitism, this long process, which has been a long-standing goal of Zionists and their allies and enablers to conflate Israel and Judaism. And I think the amazing thing that we're seeing right now is there's this kind of schism happening where that's really being put to the test. All that work to go into conflating these two things is being put to the test right now. And you have people out there like that dipshit Columbia prof or whoever he is. We can talk about that guy and this whole like trend of people being like, people standing up for Palestine, people saying free Palestine or from the river to the sea or whatever other slogan to support Palestinians who have nothing, who are being bombed into the ground, who are being mass murdered right now, who are being ethnically cleansed right now. When you do that, it makes me feel unsafe. It means you want to kill all Jews, not just in Israel, but around the world. Myself, like random professor at American University, and my kids, who are couldn't be more safe, are somehow being threatened. You know, we're really seeing like this being put to the test, and we're seeing now, I think, this real break happening from the people that have bought this idea that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are completely inseparable, or that Judaism and Zionism are completely inseparable. You're seeing this break right now happening in real time from the people that have bought that and truly believe that, versus the people like us who know correctly that is bullshit. That there is no connection between Zionism and Judaism. That there is no connection between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. I mean, Joe, like, you talk about Haaretz. Haaretz is taking positions, like, while this violence is going on, that are actually nuanced about the causes of this violence in a way that we can't be nuanced here, like, in Canada. Like, if you take the position in Canada that Haaretz did on, like, day one of this current outbreak of violence, saying, this is the responsibility of the Israeli government. This is the responsibility of Netanyahu. If you say that in Canada or the United States, you lose your job. It's getting to a point now, like the McCarthyism is so strong right now that, like, if you say I am against genocide, I am against bombing children, you lose your job right now. And again, they just want you to be scared. They want people not to say anything. They want you to be scared. As I said, there's no combination of words you can use that's going to make your criticism actually land with any of these folks. Nothing. They want anyone to be punished who says what we know to be true, that Israel is a genocidal apartheid ethno-state. Yeah, and we've talked about Twitch, about how some of the most fervent Zionists are evangelical Christians. Like, we've talked about that. Yeah, and again, Sam, it's not to give too much credit to Haaretz, but it's just amazing how Haaretz is saying things that like will get you fired from your job if you live in Canada or the United States. So again, this is something that I really wanted to focus on today, this kind of schism that we're seeing. Because I know some people do believe this like kind of this modern version of like anti-Semitism and what it means. Like we're seeing like, in the UK, like the number of anti-Semitic incidents have increased by 500%. And it's literally just a picture of someone writing Free Palestine under a bridge. Or the whole like Eve Barlow thing. I saw a sign that said free parking and I thought it said Free Palestine. I was scared for my life. Like it's delusional. It honestly is. It is absolutely delusional. And we're seeing now this mass delusion for people that really do have bought this propaganda. And I get that people, especially people that grow up in certain Jewish communities, are completely inundated with this kind of Zionist propaganda from childhood. I totally get that. My sympathy only goes so far when it comes to that. We're all inundated. You don't think I grew up in Brockville, Ontario. You don't think I was inundated with propaganda? Not the exact same flavor of empire propaganda, but I've been bombarded with propaganda from the first time, from the moment I was born as well. And you know what? After you get to a certain age, you have to start thinking for yourself. You have to grow up. It's time to grow up. Like we're seeing that on this mass level, people that are like this this delusional, narcissistic victim complex of people that are saying like, you're supporting Palestine. These student groups are supporting Palestine. They're saying free Gaza. They're saying free Palestine. They're saying from the river to the sea, whatever. That's scary to me. You're threatening me personally. I'm scared for myself now. I'm scared for my family and my kids. It's delusional. And frankly, it's pathetic. As a liberal, Israel's response to Hamas is perfectly reasonable. China's reaction to the Uyghurs, however, is genocide. I mean, we've talked about that comparison enough. I think we can forever, like, if anyone was intimidated out of talking about the Uyghur thing or being, I don't want to be accused of being a genocide denier, but I better not say anything about this. I'm sorry, but now it's time to just call that out for being the bullshit that it always was as well. All these completely phony accusations of genocide has never been, were never being made in any kind of good faith. And they were literally coming from the former leader of the CIA. So fucking do the math.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Love the coverage as always, Rob. Keep it up.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for 2 months tier 1. Happy to have you in the community. I'm not tenured. I could be fired for this. Yeah, you're going to be fired. This whole thing, the Barry Weiss thing. Oh, you're so brave. It takes real bravery and courage, whether it's this fucking guy, this Israeli professor, whether it's Barry Weiss, whether it's Amy Schumer. Oh, it's so brave. It's such a brave stance to say, I support Israel's full right to bomb people in a prison camp, when our entire government and media apparatus is in full agreement with you. All of these like big brands and like sports leagues are like talking about this. Yeah, it's really brave. It's a really brave stance to show. And there's something incredibly grotesque, and just, it actually makes me sick to, in the case of this professor guy.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Free Palestine.
Thank you, Bon Bon, for 26 months tier 1. We don't want to scare anybody with this divisive, radical rhetoric. Like, I'm sorry. This absolutely makes me sick. This guy. Who's taking this moment when our own government, the US government and the Canadian government, are funding this mass murder campaign, killing thousands of kids in reality, not in this fantasy version this guy's invented in his mind. And you're so upset.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS Friendship Triangle Palestine will be free.
Thank you, Pizzicata, for 11 months tier 1. You take this moment when thousands of kids are being killed with bombs that we pay for, and you make that into this like totally imagined threat against you and your own kids. When people say free Palestine, it makes me scared for my kids. There's actual kids dying right now by the thousands, and we're paying for it. We're paying for it, and our government is giving them the full okay to do this. Actual kids, and you've turned it into this totally made up threat against your own kids who are in America and are totally safe and sound in their beds. Let me find this video, because this guy's video is psychotic, honestly. And this is kind of what I'm talking about as well. Like, I think in the past there would be this effort to, when people say things like this, to say like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to upset this guy. This guy's very upset. We want to show people that we're not a threat. We want to prove to people that we're don't support terrorism or anything like that. And we just want, and we'll just try and find the right set of words to make sure that people like this are going to feel comfortable. We just have to reject this now. There's no making this guy feel better, because this is a delusional person. This person is completely fucking delusional. There's no sense in trying to get this guy on board, and there's no sense when people like this make this totally baseless claim that they're somehow being threatened by campus groups supporting Palestine. You don't have to give that any oxygen whatsoever, except to say no. It's delusional. You don't need to give any credence to these totally delusional claims anymore. And this is the schism that we're seeing right now. We're seeing people that have accepted this version, that accepted this kind of propaganda idea about Judaism and Zionism, and they're really putting it all on the line right now and trying to make all the same claims, and there's people that are just rejecting it, and they should be rejecting it. And all our mainstream institutions are with this fucking guy, and the people are rejecting it. The people who stand with Palestine, and we're the majority. We're the majority of people. Like, I actually think it's fucking horrible to support kids being killed by being like, as a father, I'm disgusted and scared by this like pro-Palestinian activism. It's so fucking weird. We don't have to listen to this shit anymore. We really do not.
But I need your help. If you can all now take out your phones. Because I need your help. So please take out your phones. Put it on video. I'm going to stand here because I want everyone to see where I'm standing.
He wants to go for he really wants this viral moment.
Where we are.
I'm sorry, this is psychotic.
Okay. So everyone, please take out your phones because I want this message
To go viral.
to get to every parent who sent their kids to Columbia University.
It's Columbia, yeah.
And trusted their kids and their children's safety with us. I want this message to get to every parent in America who sends their kids to NYU, to Harvard, to Stanford, to Berkeley.
He's getting his passionate.
And I want you to know one thing.
Oratory
We cannot
voice.
protect your child. And I'm not saying this as a professor. I should introduce myself. My name is Shai Davidai. I am a professor at Columbia Business School.
Columbia Business
I am
School.
Israeli. But before all of that,
Not a real discipline.
I am a dad. I have 2 beautiful children.
This is sad. This is just
I'm
embarrassing.
talking to you. I'm speaking to you as a
I have my
dad.
2 beautiful children.
And I want you to know
We must continue to
cannot
support
protect your
genocide.
children from pro-terror student organizations because the president of Columbia University will not speak out.
There's
against
actual kids
pro-terror
dying right now,
student
sir.
Organizations. Because the president of Harvard University, because the president of Stanford, because the president of Berkeley, they will not speak out against pro-terror student organizations.
Supporting the IDF is pro-terror.
14 U.S. citizens were kidnapped into Gaza
What were they doing
with
there?
200 other Israeli, French, German, and other nationalities. 14 citizens of the U.S. are right now kidnapped in Gaza.
Over 4,000
And
people
yet
have
the
died in
president
Gaza in the
of
last
university
10 days,
is
2 weeks.
allowing, is giving her support to pro-terror student organizations.
Literally organizations that don't want our governments to be sponsoring a mass bombing campaign and a mass murder campaign. I'm so scared. I'm scared for my life because you're opposed genocide. If that's what maybe you should feel bad. Isn't that part of it? They're just these student groups that you claim to be pro-terror. They're just reminding you every day, and you should be reminded every day of your life. If you wake up and you support this fucking monstrosity, you should be made to feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry, it hurts your conscience to think about this. Using your kids as a shield to support genocide is just fucking so delusional. These are the kinds of people that were making these claims about Corbyn. This is what I mean. This is who has been dominating this discourse about who counts as an anti-Semite and who doesn't for years now. And most of our political class are completely in agreement about it. Yeah, Blursit. I mean, there's tons of anti-Zionist, like Orthodox Jewish groups and just like anti-Zionist Jews. As I've said repeatedly, some of the people that I have learned the most from about this, some of the people that I have the most respect for. This idea that being against Israel is being against Jewish people is false. It's not real. It's not true. We're not letting anyone make this claim anymore. These people care so much about hearing what Jews have to say that when Jews say, I'm against Zionism, I'm against Israel, I support Palestinians, they say, shut the fuck up. Shut up. You're not really Jewish. That's what they say. That's how much they actually care about anti-Semitism. This fucking pathetic victimization routine. I'm sick of it, and we should all be sick of it. I'm the real victim, doing he wants this to go viral. He's doing his big emotional plea. It's so delusional and narcissistic and pathetic. Israel is the most anti-Semitic state in the world. It lures Jews in with the false promise of a safe haven, then drafts them into an endless, unwinnable war. As we've seen, like this whole idea that that's the only place in the world where Jews are safe is not true. That is not true whatsoever. And in fact, like the actions of Israel and this whole process of trying to conflate Judaism and Zionism makes Jews around the diaspora less safe as well. It empowers actual anti-Semites.
Can a settler be?
Yes. Yes, we have seen some of those posts. She's is Sim Currency a she her? I think so. Has been absolutely fantastic. We can look at some more of those videos, but she's honestly tremendous. Anyway, let's just, because I think it's worth watching, because I think this guy is in a extremely embarrassing and pathetic way. Sim is they them. Okay, good to know. Thank you. This guy is in this really embarrassing and pathetic way, really outlining a viewpoint which has completely taken over all our discourse, all our mainstream media, and all our political class. Basically, even though this guy is obviously ridiculous, most people in our political class agree with this basic assessment that being against Israel is somehow harmful or scary for Jewish people. And I don't even doubt that some Jewish people do feel scared by this kind of thing. But I'm sorry, but that's a result of your brainwashing. It's not based in reality. Let's continue this extremely annoying thing.
I have an amazing 7-year-old son. Every night before I tuck him to sleep, we read a chapter of Harry Potter. And yet, to the students...
What's the part? What's the part in Harry Potter with the bankers again? Did you talk about that part? What is this? I have a beautiful son. Guess what? I have a beautiful 7-year-old son too, asshole. You want to play that game? Guess what? I'm a dad too. Guess what? I have a beautiful 7-year-old son, and every single night I hang out with them. We read stories together, and we're reading The Fellowship of the Ring right now. And I say, Free Palestine, from the river to the sea. What is this? I have a beautiful son. You know? I have a beautiful son and we must support genocide. It's sickening. Genuinely. It's so weird. This is why we must, because of my beautiful son that I read Harry Potter to, this is why we must drop 7,000 bombs on Gaza was not enough. Let's make it 8,000. Let's make it 9,000. 1,000 dead kids was not enough. Let's make it 2,000. Let's make it 3,000. Let's make it 4,000. Because of my beautiful son. Do people not see how fucking absurd this is? Man-sized lamb, get the fuck out of here. Absolute loser shit. Defending ethnic cleansing. Pathetic. Go away.
Pro-terror student organizations at Columbia. My 7-year-old son is a legitimate target of resistance.
No, it's not.
Just because he's Israeli.
That is not true.
I have a 2-year-old daughter.
That's completely made up.
Daughter. She has 2 songs that are her
Student groups
Baby
chanting
Shark,
Free Gaza and Free Palestine have nothing to do with your kids.
And yet, to the pro-terror student organizations on campus, here and at Harvard and at NYU and at Stanford and at Berkeley and at Northwestern, my 2-year-old daughter is a legitimate target of resistance.
No, you're a fucking liar.
What they are selling.
You're a liar,
you are
sir.
Allowed to murder and kidnap my 2-year-old daughter in the name of resistance. And none of the presidents of universities all around the
You're a
country
Weasley fucking liar, dude.
are willing to take a stand. This is what cowards do.
Now, cowards hold up their own kids to justify a mass bombing campaign against other little kids. You know, kids that are actually in danger. Kids that are actually in danger. Kids that are being blown up by American bombs right now. Actual things that are going on in reality rather than your imagination.
The mayor of New York City is able to say, this is not okay. Then where are you, President Shafiq of Columbia University? We are waiting for you to eradicate all pro-terror student organizations.
Eradicate, huh? Who's the genocide supporter again? This guy loves genocide.
We had thousands of students chanting pro-terror songs that are sung right now in Iraq, in Libya, in Yemen, in Afghanistan.
That's right.
They were singing this.
Least insane
not in
business
Gaza,
school professor.
Not in Afghanistan. Here in New York City. And this is the
go back to the
that you
IDF
want to
then,
send
if you're so
your
scared.
children to. They were celebrating the rape of teenage girls in a music festival in the name of resistance.
That has been debunked.
They were celebrating this.
That woman that was paraded around as being the victim of these assaults was found alive.
The president of university
She was
is
not dead.
allowing these pro-terror student organizations to march on our campuses. They brought...
Then get all your Zionist friends and do another
building
count. Isn't that how that's supposed to work? Like, isn't that what free speech is? Get all your other fellow Zionist friends together and do your own protest. Surely. If it's that cut and dry, where are all your big thousands of people protesting to support Zionism? Fucking get them out there. Do your own protest. Where are they? Let's see them. Instead of whining and crying and complaining and trying to shut down the legitimate speech of student organizations, get all your fucking Zionist friends together and do your own protest. And I'm sure, since it's as cut and dry and as black and white about supporting terror or freedom as you make it out to be, surely there's going to be thousands and thousands of people that will support that. Guess what, though? We don't buy that shit anymore. I'm sorry. No one is buying this shit anymore. Those days are finished when we pretended that this was a legitimate viewpoint, that these are some kind of legitimate concern. Sorry, no more. We're not doing that anymore. This is their strategy. No one should be allowed to offer counter programming. And look, there's nothing, like I said, so let's say these student organizations in Colombia, they got together and because they wanted to support Palestinians. So they put together a rally, but they said, okay, here's the things we can't do. We can't say, free Palestine. We can't say, from the river to the sea. Let's take a look at all the scary words and phrases and songs that scare guys like this, and we'll make sure we don't do that, so they know how serious we are about not wanting to be scared. Do you think then this guy would say, okay, good, thank you, that's all I was asking? Do you think that would be enough? Do you think that would be enough for this guy to say, like, okay, no problem then? No, they don't want anything. Right? They don't want BDS. You don't want nonviolent protests like the March of Return. You don't want nonviolent protests saying free Palestine. There's nothing. There's nothing you can say that's going to make this guy happy. There's nothing that Palestinians can do except just lie down. Lie down and just give up and shut up and stop complaining about it. That's what this guy wants. And he's pathetically and embarrassingly using his own kids to shield his argument. And trying to pretend he's making some kind of moral standpoint. He used the word eradicate. You saw the mask slip there for real. Eradicate these student organizations. Who's in those student organizations? I wonder. Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians. Gaza needs to be glassed. That's his argument. Again, there's a mass murder campaign going on right now. We're paying for it. The only tool that we have to show support or solidarity to these people in this helpless moment is to gather together and try to make some kind of display showing that we don't agree with this. We don't support it. To show that we're with Palestine. And according to this guy, this should just not be allowed. I'm looking for a less depressing, intense alternative to Hassan. I don't know if I mean, You Can't Kill Me Dude 23. I am happy to have you. I'm always happy to have when people that are from the Hassan community can come in here where it's a little less, the chat's not going so crazy. We can have a bit more of a back and forth, you know? I can't promise you less depressing or intense though. That I can't promise you. It's been pretty depressing lately. I'm going to be straight up with you. I do hope you stick around, but it's not great right now, honestly. It's not great. I get that he's scared, but someone's real physical child is being blown apart right now. And I don't even think he is. Like, in all honesty, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how many of these views are genuinely held. If he really genuinely thinks that his children are going to be targeted by these like pro-Palestine student groups, maybe he does, but that's delusional. If you do actually think that, that's a completely insane and delusional thing to believe. Netanyahu's back with the "we are the people of light and they are the people of darkness" line. Yeah, and but this guy's the victim though. This guy's the fucking victim. This Columbia University business prof. And again, business school is not real. Business school is just completely fake. He isn't scared at all. He's furious that people are supporting Palestinian freedom and opposing Israeli genocide. Well, that's just what it seems to be, right? Like I talked about how they've laid, the groundwork has been laid for this narrative about Palestine, Hamas, terrorism, anti-Semitism, accepting this like frame of anti-Semitism that it's totally inseparable from Israel. There's been a long process of trying to make that stick. And people like this are seeing the fact that people are rejecting this. People are not buying it. And it enrages them. It enrages them that people don't believe this obvious bullshit. And like I said, even a few years ago, people were willing to entertain it. When it comes to the Corbyn thing, people were like, oh, we got to take this seriously. We got to take these kind of accusations seriously. We got to show how contrite we are. We got to show how serious we are about this problem. And that helped implode the entire movement. It was very successful. And now we're getting to this schism. This is what I keep kind of talking about today. We're at this total turning point where people are just rejecting this idea outright, and they should, and they're correct to. And people like this who are used to having their completely made up victimization bullshit be taken seriously by people are like, what do you mean? What's going on? We said specifically on October 7th that supporting Palestinians meant you were supporting Hamas and you're supporting terrorism, but you're going to do it anyway. We said over and over that if you organize right now and support Palestinians, if you support Gaza, if you say free Palestine, if you say from the river to the sea, we said specifically that it's anti-Semitic and that it supports terrorism. What's going on? I thought that was supposed to...
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I thought that was supposed to make it so no one would protest. People are losing their jobs. Like, why aren't people afraid? And that's what it is, right? People are not accepting this bullshit. They're not. And it's enraging to people like this. Because they're like, why isn't this working anymore?
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Diego, thanks for the 2 gifted subs, including to our friend Barfcast. Thank you for that. Let's hear more from this fucking delusional weirdo.
The Center for Jewish Life had to go on lockdown. Not in Gaza, not in Tel Aviv, here in New York City. Because of this cowardice of the presidents of NYU, of Columbia, of Harvard.
Yeah, the problem is American Ivy League institutions are not Zionist enough, according to this guy. That's the real problem. All these Hamas sympathizing Ivy League presidents, that's the issue. That's how delusional these people are. Like, they have everything. They have the full media. All of our media establishment is supportive of this. Our whole government is supportive of this. All of these mainstream institutions are supportive of this. And it's not enough. It is not enough. They still act like they're the fucking victim. Shit will hit the fan once they invade Gaza. I'm scared. It's supposed to happen any day now. Apparently, the only reason it hasn't is because America has tried to they had no plan other than to just go in and have no plan for what's going to happen after, of course, because their plan is just to eradicate Gaza and to completely fucking ethnically cleanse it, at least in the north, and just try to push as many people as they can completely out so they can never come back again. But yeah, shit will hit the fan because it's not going to go well for them. That's why. That's a main reason why it hasn't happened. Also, they're fucking scared to do it because they know it's going to be a disaster. Netanyahu's supposed to have a big speech tonight. We saw the weird stories about like the aircraft carriers that are like acting like they're like shit is about to start happening. Out here registering domains like harvardhatesjews.com to demonize student unions. Well, when we're seeing it in York University as well. My friend Nashwa is a big part of this this kind of battle right now with the York Student Union, who are being like, they have a lawsuit against them now. Let's hear more from this asshole. We got another 4 minutes of this pathetic crying to listen to, so let's continue with this.
In the United States, it does not matter if you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist or an atheist like myself. Rape is never okay.
Right.
Not as an act of resistance, not as an act of revenge. Rape is never okay.
I wonder what this guy talks about the way female Palestinian prisoners are treated in the IDF prison system. I wonder if any rape or sexual assaults against women happen in there that this guy has never said one fucking word about in his entire life.
If my amazing 2-year-old daughter was now 18 years old, I would never send her to Columbia.
Good.
Not because it's not a great institution, it's an amazing institution, but because I know that she will not be protected there.
My amazing
Because
son,
the president
my
of the
amazing daughter.
university allows pro-terrorists to march on campus. We would never allow
Get your Zionist friends
KKK
together.
to march on our campus.
Go have a Zionist
We would
march.
never allow a pro-ISIS demonstration.
Get your thousands of people
on our
together
campus.
and have
Can
your
you
own little
imagine
march.
in the city that had to endure 9/11, the worst attack on American soil.
Looks like he tried that, yeah, and about 15 people showed up.
Can you imagine that here we have pro-terror student organizations?
You can say that all
What
you
I
want.
you
No
to
one
do
believes
now
it. Sorry,
is I
sir.
want you to go
Sorry,
on social
we
media.
don't believe that
I
anymore.
want
We
you
don't listen to that
put
shit
this
anymore.
video online. I want this to get to every parent.
I want it to go viral because
every
I could only
concerned
get fucking 20 students to show up to see this little speech. So let's make this go viral. Maybe more than 20 people will see it then.
mom, every concerned dad in around the United States.
Sir, this is a
And I
Wendy's.
want you all tomorrow morning to call your kids' college, your kids' university, and ask them one simple question. Will you protect my child from pro-terror student organizations?
This is just absolutely
And if
delusional.
your kid is not yet in college,
With
but
your
you are a
fucking
concerned
child.
parent
There's
or
children
a
dying
concerned
right now.
grandparent, I want you to call.
This guy
your
likes when
senator.
children are killed. This man likes when the Israeli government drops bombs on little kids' heads. He thinks it's absolutely great when that happens. That's how much he cares about protecting kids. This repeated motif of talking about your beautiful children, while what you're doing, you're talking about pro-terror student groups. You're pro-terror. If you support the IDF, if you support Israel, you are factually pro-terror. What is terrorism? What's the actual definition of terrorism? Is when you intentionally, I know the definition has been watered down a lot over the last 20, 25 years because it turns out to being just like when you're Muslim and you do something versus when other people do it, it's okay. The actual definition is when you willingly and intentionally target civilian populations to spread violence and terror to kind of make some kind of political message. That's literally, factually, what the IDF is doing right now. It's what they do every single day. If you support that, you support terrorism. You have no problem. These pro-terror student groups are threatening my beautiful children. You literally support terrorism. Factually. Someone said white women's tears cross gender lines. I haven't watched this whole clip. Unironically, bringing up 9/11 is interesting too, as well, because you see the complete horror show that was unleashed in the aftermath of that, which we know we knew at the time, but we know especially now was morally fucking grotesque. So let's defend Israel doing the exact same thing. Just white women's tears cross gender lines. I haven't watched this whole clip, but I think he does try to bring on the waterworks in the end there. We're getting into the closing. We're getting into the closing of this little tantrum. And he tries to turn on the waterworks at the end there. Let's see how it goes.
Your representative in Congress, your governor, your mayor. And I want you to ask them, are the colleges in my city, in my state, who are funded by taxpayers' money, are they harboring pro-terror student organizations? Because kidnapping 9-month-old babies is never okay. Rape is never okay. Murdering 89-year-old grandmothers.
That's what Israel is doing right now.
And do not know what is going on. Shooting them in the head. Executing them. It's never, never, never okay.
Okay, so first of all, again, if it's never okay, you should be against Israel doing that right now. Number one, that's literally what they're doing right at this very moment. So if it's never okay, then it should be not okay right now, which is exactly, you'd be in agreement with these pro-terror student groups. He did ran out of talking points a while ago. Yeah. He's now gonna try and turn on the waterworks here. Let's hear.
I'm sorry I'm getting emotional. I'm only emotional.
Here it is.
Because I am a parent. People have asked me in the past few days, are you not afraid to speak up? You're putting your job on the line. You got it all wrong. I am not afraid to speak up. I am speaking up because I'm afraid. I am speaking up because I walked onto my own campus, the place that is employing me and supposed to keep me safe, and I was shivering. I am 40 years old, and I was
yeah, it's really sad
to come to my own employment.
Then stay home.
Imagine not being able to go to your work because your boss does not value
yeah, that's right,
your
Global
life.
Cop. Yeah, it's this guy.
Because your boss supports pro-terror organizations. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, he's kind of tried to do a little.
Welcome to democracy.
You know, midlife crisis. This is just sad, honestly. It's absolutely fucking pathetic. You know. This is what I mean, like, we don't need to take this seriously anymore. This is the schism that we're seeing right now between people that have spent the last couple of decades taking this kind of argument seriously and people that are just totally rejecting this basic premise. The US and Israeli governments are materially pro-terror organizations. I mean, there's no greater purveyor of terror than the United States government, and partially because of its client states, such as Israel. It really sucks when your genocidal delusions keep you from going to work. I would imagine I don't have that problem myself, but my heart goes out to this asshole. Man, that is really something else, honestly. It's been good watching so many people protest on the streets. It does show that there's a shift going on. Yeah, and I was able to go to a protest the other day, which is not something that I get a chance to do very often. And I thought it was very mentally productive. Like, it was a really good thing to do, because you do feel like you see our whole media establishment supporting this. You see our political class supporting this. You see friends and family making kind of fucked up comments and claims about this. And you go, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by thousands of people, and you're reminded that we're the majority. We might not have the power. We don't have the power. We don't control the media apparatus like people that are in support of this Zionist project do. But the people are with Palestine. And that's what these people can't stand. That's what guys like this cannot stand. They cannot stand that with all their propaganda and the way that, like, the thumb of power is jammed down on this scale to make it so, like, their viewpoint is the only one that we ever hear, despite everything. The fact that they have this like powerful ethno state that's being funded by the U.S. military, billions of dollars every year. They got planes, they got tanks, bombs, soldiers. They have everything, and they can't get people to go along with this narrative. They can't get people to give up. They're mad that we're not silent about their crimes. They're mad that despite everything and all the effort that's gone into linking supporting Palestine with supporting terror, linking like Hamas and Palestine in people's minds. There's been this long-standing project now to do this long-standing project to link Zionism and Judaism together, and it's not working. It's not. People are rejecting it. They're rejecting it more and more because people can see with their eyes what this actually means, what the most moral army means when they engage in this absolute barbarism, and they can't stand it. They can't stand that there's people that just will not believe their absolute bullshit. And there's people that are not swayed at all by this completely embarrassing, like, moralizing that he's doing. As a father! God, it's fucking crazy. As a father! The fact that there's student groups that don't support the mass bombing of Gaza makes me scared for my life. And people just don't accept this anymore. We're not playing this game anymore. I am no longer fazed by the crocodile tears. More and more people are now coming around to this kind of viewpoint. And this motherfucker cannot stand it. It just drives him crazy. How do we combat anti-Semites taking advantage of the situation and support Palestinians at the same time? I think it's really just a matter of shutting that down. And I think it's very few and far between. But anytime anyone shows up to a pro-Palestine rally or an anti-Zionist thing and has some kind of a genuinely anti-Semitic slogan that they're saying or talking about Hitler or whatever, that has to get shut down immediately. Anyone that shows up to any one of these protests that does go into that territory needs to get the shit beat out of them. Like, right away. Figuratively. Yeah, we've been saying punch Nazis the whole time. Exactly. For us, it wasn't just a slogan. For a lot of people, it was just a slogan, right? The whole being against Nazis thing, punch every Nazi you see. For some people, it was just a slogan. And then when it came down to it, it's like, no, we got to send more javelin missiles to those Nazis, actually, instead of punching them. For some people, it was just like we said, there's white women right now that now that this like pro-Palestinian movement is turning into a mass movement, a mass global movement, both inside the empire and outside the empire, all of a sudden they talk identically to
This
these
is some guy, Rob Russo,
to
some
these
leftist based in
alt-right
Canada.
guys.
I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
These like white women now that as soon as this big mass movement, pro-Palestinian mass movement starts up, they start talking about like Western civilization and defending Western civilization from the brown hordes and stuff. Like that's how these people are talking.
You've
This
just become
switch
an
got
elite
flipped.
member of the friendship triangle.
All of a sudden, all these liberals are talking like they love the book Camp of the Saints. They're like all Camp of the Saints acolytes now. Immediately. Clobocop, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That's very kind of you. And thank you, Left Flank Vets, for the raid. Thank you, Left Flank Vets. I was right in the middle of making an important point. But thank you, Left Flank Vets, for the raid. I appreciate it. We just watched the video of that pathetic, embarrassing guy at Columbia University crying about his kids, saying like, as a father of 2 beautiful children, we must support bombing the prison camp of Gaza. Absolutely embarrassing. Yeah, Camp of Saints is more or less the Turner Diaries and was Steve Bannon's favorite book. I remember, Husker, when a lot of people were pointing that out and talking about how dangerous that was. Can you believe Trump is getting advised by someone that likes this kind of thing? Now they all agree with it, even though they still claim to hate Trump. Some of these people should start taking a look at what Trump's about, and they'd probably agree with him a lot more. How am I supposed to raise my children in a world where I can't murder other children? Again, it's completely just freaking out because this shit is not working anymore. It's not working. People are not buying this. We're not playing this game anymore. We're not playing this respectability game trying to appease people like that. As an asshole. There really has been a lot more pushback than I've ever seen. I don't think even 2 years ago you'd see this level of pushback. Well, this is the thing, HTA. It's like all the groundwork has been laid about this whole idea of anti-Semitism and what it is and what it means to be an anti-Semite. There's been this like, decades-long project to link the idea of Zionism with Judaism in people's minds, and to link anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. And it's been quite successful. We saw how effectively that derailed the Corbyn movement. But yeah, we're seeing people just now rejecting this. And this is what people like that can't stand. They cannot stand that people are just rejecting this. And they refuse to be swayed. There's more and more people that are in the Norman Finkelstein camp. I refuse to be swayed by the crocodile tears. This is what we're not going to allow anymore. More and more people are just totally rejecting this total bullshit, and they see through it. I've even seen people like Nikki Haley come out and literally say anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I know they're not shy about it. Like they've been working on this for a while. For a long time, they wouldn't use those so many words, but now they're really coming out and saying it. And the fact that it's neocons like Nikki Haley saying that should give you all the indication you need to know that it's not accurate. But people are still buying it. Thank you, you can't kill me, dude. Come back next time. It's been years of this on campuses. You support BDS? You're part of like a Palestinian working group and you support BDS and you're trying to like change the hummus brand in our school cafeteria? That makes me feel unsafe and scared. And this has been what it's been like on campuses for now years. Like you see that tweet from Justin Trudeau. It makes Jewish students unsafe when you talk about BDS on campuses. And then so you have to do, okay, like let's talk about this in a way that's not going to make you feel unsafe. Let's make sure that we assuage all your concerns and make sure you feel comfortable, and then maybe we can talk. But like he's saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say. Anything, any resistance whatsoever, any support of Palestinians whatsoever makes them feel unsafe. So there's a turning point right now that people have to decide which side they're on here. Do you care more about standing with Palestinian people, or do you care about making these people comfortable? That's the question. You can't have it both ways anymore. Like I said, with the Corbyn movement, there's been these people that tried to have it both ways. I support Corbyn, but I also want to make these people comfortable. I support Palestine, but of course I still want to make these people comfortable. You can't have it both ways. This is the schism that we're seeing right now. You know? You can support Palestinians, or you can try and make people like that comfortable. Which means shutting the fuck up and supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Which means right to commit terrorism. Right to bomb kids. Right to ethnically cleanse Gaza. That's what that means. Israel's right to defend itself. These are the two sides. Like in this, there was maybe an opportunity prior to this breaking out that you could kind of play it both ways or stay on the fence. It's not possible anymore. And that's really why, like, it just feels like there's this big shift that's happening right now, because you can't go back to how it was before now. There's a split. There's a split happening. You're seeing it in the NDP with, like, Sarah Jama. And there's people that are just like, I will never, like, I'm not part of this anymore. I will not ever be part of this again. There's people in the Democratic Party. I don't care about the lesser of two evils argument anymore. I'm done. And they're right to say that. They're right to take that stance. It's like a progressive politician urging humanitarian aid to Gaza while supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Yeah, like the John Fetterman style position. Even though I think he's just as much as a fucking Zionist as Nikki Haley. But yeah, and that's why that's untenable. It's a completely incomprehensible, incoherent position. Of course, I still support the bombing campaign, but we need to support Palestinians. No, I'm sorry. That's incoherent. Materially, if the lesser of two evils is already doing genocide, the whole argument flies right out of the window. And I mean, again, we don't need to focus on Israel. Look at Obama and the Standing Rock protesters, the ongoing genocide of indigenous peoples right here, which liberals fully support, whether it's the Obamas of the world or the Justin Trudeaus of the world. One thing about all this is that the acceleration argument is a moot point now, because acceleration is happening regardless of our opinions. Insane people are doing insane things and people are reacting. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think there's much we can really do. Narrator 9000, thanks for the Prime sub. I don't know why that didn't trigger an alert. I'm having some weird technical issues today. Thank you, Narrator 9000, for 14 months of Prime. Looking through Twitter, politics these days is like looking into a different world when it comes to Gaza bombing. Thanks for your coverage. Thank you, Narrator. Yeah, I accidentally voted for the accelerationist option. Well, that's what I mean. I just think, we're on the roller coaster, and we can judge about like what stage we're at on the roller coaster, whether we're on the full downward swing now, or if we're still just cresting. That moment in the roller coaster when you're just cresting the top right before the plunge. It's hard to know like where we are on that, but there's not much we can really do. There's not really much we can really do. We're on the ride. We're on the ride, and it's not stopping. I think we've been on the way down for a little bit. Sean, I don't know. I think we might sometimes be underestimating what that's going to look like. I think there's going to be times in the 30s when we look back on this moment and say like, oh boy, we thought we were on the down part of the roller coaster. Oh boy, we were still going up. We'll see. I don't know. We are possibly in the moment, but this is the thing that I don't trust myself anymore, because there's been a number of times over the last couple of years that I've asked myself that question. Is it happening? Is it happening? It feels like it's happening. And then the can gets kicked down the road. Right now, it doesn't feel possible to kick the can down the road any farther. It almost feels like the can has been kicked for about as far as it can. Declines can last a long time. They can last centuries. Anyway, that is why I'm happy to be here doing this show every day. Yeah, imagine talking about pro-terror student groups saying things like "from the river to the sea" when this is what you support. I think that's the really cowardly thing about people like that are doing this victimization thing. Just say that you support genocide and ethnic cleansing against Palestinians. Just say you want them all gone. You know? You'll feel better. You'll feel better. Just say it. Stop doing this fucking game where you're like, oh, I'm the victim. I love human rights. I think human rights are good. Just say you support this. You know? That's what's annoying to me about it. Like when people say like, Rob, do you support Stalinism? Like surely you say you like socialism. Don't tell me you support Stalinism. And my answer is yes, I do. Yes, I do, actually. And these people can't do that. Just say you support genocide and ethnic cleansing. I'm saying you'll feel better. Seriously. Stop couching it in this bullshit. This bullshit about human rights and victimization in the Holocaust or whatever it is. Just say it. Like at least Netanyahu is saying it. Like this is who they support. Let's hear what Mr. Human Rights has to say. Mr. Human Rights Defender. I have 2 beautiful kids and I demand you follow what this guy says.
Our war against Hamas is a test for all of humanity. It is a struggle between the axis of evil of Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and the axis of freedom and progress. We are the people of the light. They are the people of darkness, and light shall triumph over darkness.
Really just spelling it out.
October 7th was a very dark and black
just
day
spell it
in
out
our
for everybody.
history.
This is what Mr. I Have 2 Beautiful Kids supports.
At our southern border, the border with Gaza.
The ironic thing is that Stalin literally supported Israel when it was still being founded. Exactly, and that's one of the bigger L's for the big man, frankly. That's very true. If you want me to have a critique, there you got one right there.
Everybody will have to provide answers, myself included, but all that will happen only after the war. As a prime minister, I'm responsible for guaranteeing the future of this country, and now my role is to lead all Israelis, the state of Israel and the people of Israel, to an overpowering victory. It is now a time to come together for one purpose, to storm ahead to achieve victory. With joint forces and a profound belief in our justness, a profound belief in the eternity of the Jewish people, we shall realize the prophecy of Isaiah. There will no longer be stealing at your borders, and your gates will be of glory. Together we will fight. Together we will win.
Well, that's the amazing thing as well about this whole like from the river to the sea argument. Oh, you can't say that. That's one of those slogans that really scares people. No, you can support Palestinians, but you can't say that. It's too scary. It's this genocidal slogan. The ironic thing about that whole thing is that's what Netanyahu believed. That's what Zionists believe. You think Netanyahu wants a 2-state solution? No. Netanyahu and his Zionist friends and supporters and enablers like Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, they believe in from the river to the sea. They want one state from the river to the sea for Jews only that expels all the Palestinians and Arabs. That's what they believe in. They're not shy about talking about this. They're being totally open about it right now. Which apparently isn't this big controversial thing for them to say. Their plans for like greater Israel. Yes, Sephardics need not apply. Yeah, and again, like to see how much they care about Judaism, just show how they treat Ethiopian Jews and other black Jewish people. Surely they can come and have all the exact same rights. No, it's white supremacist. This is what I mean, catalepsy. Stand your ground or get pushed back. No more going on the back foot about this. Like we can't anymore. We just can't do it anymore. We've talked about what that gets you as like a rhetorical strategy, being on the back foot and being on the defensive and trying to appease these people. We're not listening to this bullshit anymore.
Okay, it feels important to say this. I am not pulling my perspective on Israel-Palestine out of my ass, okay? I'm not just guessing that Israel is committing a genocide against Palestine. I have studied and researched this. I have bona fides, and I will share them. First of all, I'm a Jewish woman. I was raised by a Zionist family. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor.
According to the fucking whining, crying, pants-shitting baby at Columbia University, this is a pro-terror anti-Semite, this person.
Family talks about our spirit of resistance and resilience constantly. Desiring goodness from the nation of Israel is in my blood, and still I can see that this Zionist state is vicious, violent, and evil. If someone who is raised by a Zionist family, by people who believe that Israel has the right to exist and that it is our salvation, if I can overcome my pro-Israel bias and learn about this conflict, so can you. And frankly, I should not be calling it a conflict, it's a genocide. So when I was in college, around 2012, 2013, a bunch of my friends and loved ones started going on birthright trips. And I knew enough then to ask the question when they got back from their birthright trips, what about Palestine? And when these people I love, admire, and respect started talking about Palestinians and using language like terrorists, I knew I had to learn more. I also knew that I wanted to go on birthright, and I was nervous about being brainwashed by the trip, and I should have been nervous. So before I went on birthright, I decided at my small liberal arts school in Massachusetts to get a well-rounded perspective, educational perspective on Israeli-Palestinian politics. I took 4 courses: Suffering and Evil in the Jewish Tradition, The Jewish Experience, Middle East Politics, and Arab-Israeli Conflict. I also took international and comparative politics courses that often brought up Israel and Palestine in comparisons to, for example, apartheid South Africa. And by the time I finished my
birth wrong
on the subject, before I went on birthright, I was already pro-Palestine. Because once you are in the literature, once you are in the research, not the media stories about this, not the pro-Zionist rigmarole on CNN and MSNBC, once you are in the literature and the data, this isn't a debate. This isn't a question. People talk about Israel-Palestine like it is incredibly complicated, and I reject that premise. It is not. We know that anti-Semitism exists globally, right? We know that Jews are not the most beloved population in the world. We know that Britain has a colonial history and they have taken on colonial projects even through the 20th and 21st centuries. Essentially, Britain already wanted to colonize Palestine. So did the United States. And at the end of World War II, Britain and the US got to talking and they
This
thought,
process started way before the war.
Who do we want to exploit for military labor someplace that is surrounded by brown people so that we can rape and pillage land that we don't currently have access to? Where's one part of the globe we haven't effectively colonized yet? And there was Palestine. And Britain had been trying to colonize Palestine already. And so this was passed off to Jews who had just survived the Holocaust as a gift. Here we're granting you this parcel of land so that you and your progeny can exist in peace and not be violated anymore. Congratulations. Except that land already belonged to someone. Palestinians were already living there. And the US and Britain didn't give a shit about the well-being of Jews. They didn't care. This wasn't a gift for Jews. This was always intended to be a trap of, you do our military labor for us. We'll put you here and we'll grant you
you're
this
foot
parcel of land
soldiers
that
for
already belongs to
colonialism
someone that they're
in the
already
Middle
people
East.
on. And in return, you will rape and pillage that land for us and we'll just all share in the wealth. And it might be a good idea too if like your entire population were to, have conscripted military service so you can really defend that land that is yours, totally yours, bucko. And if you see who has emerged as the political leadership of Israel over the last few generations, this won't surprise you. This insidiousness will not surprise you. This is how you get Benjamin Netanyahu, someone who absolutely agrees
Philly's
to the
own
premise of Israel as a Zionist ethno-nationalist state, who says, we are here for one thing and one thing only, is to garner as much wealth from this earth that we have, as much tourist property from this plot of land, convert it to dollars, and build up a military so mighty, a military apparatus so great that we wind up producing the world's weaponry. Yes, we have mined this land, and we have used the land to give you war machinery so that we can all murder each other 1,000 times over. And to the people already living here, well, we'll murder them too. I took basically a semester and a half of college courses on this, and I know in my bones that what Israel is doing right now is a genocide. It's evil. What they've been doing for the last 75 years is a genocide. It is drip violence, slow violence, protracted harm. It is meant to exhaust the civilian population of Palestine. It is meant to exhaust all Palestinians out of their will to fight. And all the benefit, the wealth garnered from that land goes to the primary stakeholders, not the Palestinian people to whom the land originally belonged.
And look at that, like this is happening now. This is really starting to metastasize on campuses, like exactly like what that guy wants. Look at Governor DeSantis just ordered the University of Florida and the University of South Florida to deactivate their Students for Justice in Palestine groups for violating Florida's laws against anti-Semitism. It's kind of what I'm talking about. Like all the groundwork that's been laid about conflating pro-Palestinian causes with anti-Semitism. Now it's really like being put into practice now. Exactly what this whining crybaby at Columbia wanted. They're going to eradicate these student groups, so you can't support Palestine on university campuses. You can't support. People are losing their jobs, right? If you're in a student union or like a pro-Palestine student group, if you just have a job and you say free Palestine, if you retweet an Onion article, whatever it is. Like this is McCarthyism to the extent that we have not seen at least since like 9/11 and maybe even like since McCarthyism. Like it's really going into full effect now. Thanks to sniveling losers like that guy at Columbia. Yes, same way they're canceling anything remotely Russian. Yeah, we have I wrote a book that takes place in Russia. Let me just go ahead and cancel that. It's so offensive to people. I haven't checked in on my mom recently, but she's got MSNBC blasting all day, kind of terrified to find out the crap she's been hearing about Israel Palestine. Like, I don't know. It's like it would probably be worth checking it out, Squatch, because like we're seeing there is a shift. There are people that are totally rejecting this idea, but there's a lot of people getting sucked into it as well. This is insanity. Like, first of all, let's look at this statement from the UN Secretary General about this.
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
The UN has shown how
They have seen their
completely
land
useless they are,
steadily
and their
devoured
inability
by
to confront this in any
settlements,
way.
plagued by violence, their economy stifled, their people displaced, and their homes demolished. Their hopes for a political solution to their plight have been vanishing. But the grievances of the Palestinian people cannot justify the appalling attacks by Hamas, and those appalling attacks cannot
Would you believe that
justify
they
the
called this like a
collective
totally
punishment of the
pro-Hamas
Palestinian
statement?
people. It is
At this point, even if you're watching mainstream shit, you have to kind of bend over backwards to justify the clear genocide before your eyes. I mean, this is what I was talking about, though, about this kind of schism that's happening, right? Because, like, you can't hear someone say, like, we're so, can you believe that children were killed? Can you believe that civilians died? Can you believe how horrifying that is? Can you believe how terrifying that is for people to live through? And then you look at images of Gaza that look like a nuclear bomb have gone off. You look at the constant footage of kids being pulled from the rubble, the constant reports of, like, the mass murder that's going on. And I think even most people, even that are plugged into that mainstream media machine, are thinking like that's a contradiction that is so glaring, that is so heightened, to use that kind of Marxist language. That is a contradiction that is so heightened that people can't ignore it, even if they're inclined to believe this stuff, even if they're like plugged into this mainstream media propaganda apparatus. Like, there's just a fundamental disconnect over there. There's a certain level of cognitive dissonance that's too high. And I think a lot of people are rejecting it. I like to think so anyways. CBC was treating this quote as controversial. Well, that's because the objective journalists at CBC can take everything that Israel says and they say, well, Israel says that it is. So we have to be somewhere in the middle. That's being a journalist. That's being objective. People are really being, this is what I keep saying, Dog Main. People are really being forced to choose a side on this issue. And it's quite polarizing. It's affecting everybody. This is what I'm saying. You can't sit on the fence anymore. And I think that being on the fence is a comfortable place for a lot of people to be on this. But it's not possible anymore. It is not possible. You either stand with Palestine or you support this mass bombing campaign. People are trying to have it both ways and you can't. You can't do it. Eliminate the South Park ideology in your head. Yeah, absolutely. Look at how psychotic this is. Like, this is actually insane.
Rocks like this that are thrown at Israelis in their cars and on buses.
Rocks.
They are thrown at Israeli men and women, at Israeli babies and children every single day. In 2021 alone, Israelis suffered 1,775 rocket attacks by Palestinian terrorists.
In all honesty, when I saw someone reporting this statement, I almost thought it was a typo. Like, surely you said rocket attacks, and now we're trying to use some gotcha. Like, I genuinely did, because that's too insane. Like, surely they didn't say rock attacks, right? I assumed probably that there was some kind of mistranslation, or he said rocket, or there's some kind of thing. It's like, no, he's actually just talking about rocks. How many bomb attacks do the people of Gaza endure every single year? Bombs, like actual bombs that explode? I don't think I've ever heard the word rock attack before. The Flintstones have gone rogue. Like this is insane. This is insane. And it's an offshoot of the Colombia guy, right? We're the fucking oppressors. We're the colonizers. We've got the army and we're the victims. You know? We've got the media. We've got the political class. We've got the brands. We've got everything except the people. So we're the victims. It's you see this Zionist ideology. That's how it works. This perpetual claim to victimization. Like we talked as well the other day about who counts as a civilian and who doesn't, and how no Palestinian counts as a civilian. There's no civilians in Gaza. But everyone in Israel is a civilian, even people that are in the IDF. Even settlers that are being armed by the government to go into the West Bank and carry out terrorist attacks. They're civilians as well. The IDF civilians and doing TikTok dances in military bases. But the women and kids and even men as well, we shouldn't discount Palestinian men who suffer such huge amounts of violence as well. And doctors and nurses and journalists and painters and poets, none of them are civilians. But the IDF, or these armed terrorist settlers, they're civilians as well. And I really think people are rejecting this. And they're right to reject it because it's farcical. It's absurd. It's bullshit. It's weird no one said anything when neo-Nazis were doing their marches. Well, I mean, it's not true that no one said anything. We said something. We were all against that. We all want to destroy these Nazi groups. We want to stand with Jewish people in our communities who are being threatened by these white supremacist neo-Nazis. Jewish communities in our society are not being threatened by Palestinians. They're being threatened by these neo-Nazis, many of whom support Israel. Dan Simpson, thank you for the raid. Now my alerts are not working. That's good. They were working earlier and now they are no longer working. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate the raid. Fuck's sake. Rock attacks.
But the
unbelievable.
Word says nothing. Members of the council, would you consider it a terror attack if a rock like this was thrown at your car while driving with your children? This is exactly the kind of attack that claimed the life of 4-year-old Adele Beaton and others. What would you do, honorable delegates? Rocks like this.
Like, this is embarrassing that people support this. Honestly, like, how can you look at this and be like, yes, this is the side that I choose to stand with? Of course. How humiliating is that? Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my alerts. I don't know why my fucking alerts are not working now. Really frustrating. You now hold up the sniper rifle used to counter the rock thrower. I mean, this is the thing. The victimization routine. There's footage. There's footage of Israeli snipers laughing and joking with each other while they deliberately maim children, deliberately targeting people's kneecaps and joints, so they're not killed, but they're maimed for life. Like, this is a known strategy that we have footage of it. We have full video of it. We have audio of them laughing and joking around about it. And they're still claiming to be the victims. I have a beautiful son. I have a beautiful son, and I demand that IDF snipers should be celebrated when they deliberately maim children. Like, that's what it sounds like to me now when people like that make this kind of moral claim. Ridiculous. The sight of that rock made me hide in the closet. It's very scary. Very scary stuff. And look at the psycho shit that's coming out of the Biden administration about this. Look at this. This is the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils. Let's look at what the Biden administration is saying about this.
This is war. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly, and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt going forward. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish that wasn't going to happen.
See, this just enrages me. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish, oh boy, I just wish that it were not so. I wish that it wasn't like this. You're fucking paying for this, asshole. You could stop this right now. They fund this. The only way that Israel is able to do this is because they get billions of dollars every single year from the United States government, and that's not even enough. Now they need more money. Now they need more billions. We got to package another. Well, let's make it 50. Let's make it 60. Let's make it 100 billion. They're paying for it. They could stop this right now. They could say ceasefire right now, or we're turning off the faucet. They could say that right now, and it would stop. Oh, I wish it was something else. I wish I could tell you something else. What absolute cowardice. And once again, these are the people that are going to say, folks, it's the most important election of our lifetimes. You think this is bad? Well, wait to see the other guys. Go and pull the lever for the blue team. These people are sick. Yeah, at least we don't have a Cheeto in the White House. Exactly. Can you imagine? Fuck.
But it is going to happen, and
no
that
shit.
doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it dismissible. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to still express concerns about that. And,
you're going to
and do everything
concerns.
we can to help the Israelis do everything they can to minimize it. But
no one believes this
that's
anymore.
Unfortunately, the nature of conflict. This is
sickos. We're going to express concerns, though. We're going to keep funding the bombs for the kids, but we're going to express concerns. That's the best you can do. That's the best you can hope for from your liberal ruling class. That's the best you can hope for. They're going to feel really bad about it. Believe me, we're going to keep funding the genocide. We're going to keep funding the bombs being dropped on little kids, but we're going to feel so bad about it. We're going to feel so bad. We're very concerned. Yeah, seriously, Mocasino. I knew how depraved these asshole psychos were from following Ukraine, but this is insanity. And like I keep saying, everything that's happening right now should prove to anyone beyond a shadow of a doubt that supporting Ukraine was never, ever about protecting people's democracy, protecting their sovereignty. That should prove, if in case you had any confusion about that, that should prove to you that none of that ever had anything to do about it.
it's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at
It's a war. It's ugly. Oh, he's doing the I will not be swayed by your crocodile tears.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
The images.
This is so... These people are sick. These people are fucking mutants.
Serious, mature leader.
Fucking liars.
So, I can't...
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up at the horror of it.
I think we can all speak to his depravity.
Man, I'm getting too mad to talk about this productively. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. It's the thing you're crying. Oh, I'm sorry. Sick people. Like, you have to be sick and depraved to act that way. Of course, when it's Hamas, then you don't have to listen to anything that they say.
Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly... Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against.
Fuck you,
Israel.
Dude.
And it's against their interest.
Talk amongst yourselves.
But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
I'm getting a little verklempt. Fucking sickos, man. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting choked up. What a fucking liar. God damn. I genuinely hate these people. Israel punishes Al Jazeera and its chief correspondent in Gaza, Wael al-Dahdouh, by killing Wael's wife, son, and daughter.
We've had in Britain in the last...
To go back to the whole weaponization of anti-Semitism and the Corbyn movement thing, this is a clip about that.
We've had in Britain in the last few years a massive, I think, a moral panic about anti-Semitism. It's genuinely true that we live in a moment, a perfect kind of storm for revived anti-Semitism. But it also doesn't work to argue with the guy who opened the door when I was canvassing in 2019, full of Union Jack tattoos, not the kind of guy I was taught to believe would be a friend of the Jews, a hardline right-wing nationalist who told me that he wasn't voting Labour because Jeremy Corbyn likes immigrants and also he's an anti-Semite. It wouldn't be useful to talk to him about anti-Semitism in a way that I would understand, because what he'd done when he talked about anti-Semitism is redefined what Jews were. Jews had come to him to be in an era of the State of Israel, imperialist state in the era. Jews had come to him to be not the Semitic outsiders that they were in the anti-Semitic imaginary of most of the 20th century, but a symbol of whiteness, hated by basically the wretched of the earth, hated by black and brown people with Palestinians in the lead and Arabs behind them and all the anti-imperialist, anti-colonial nations of the world behind them. Jews are also a symbol of wealth. We had a Labour MP telling us, Siobhan Madonna, I think it was, telling us that to be anti-capitalist was necessarily anti-Semitic, because Jews are a symbol of wealth. So what you see there is both conditions for a real rise in anti-Semitism, and a moral panic which claims to be about the anti-Semitism, which is really rising, synagogues really under attack, Jews really being threatened, but in fact is about constructing Jews in such a way that you can imagine, in this case, the anti-Semites as these folk devils who are the black and brown people threatening your Western hegemony, and workers and the poor threatening capitalist power. So Tony Blair said, behind all populism, one of the words I wish I could ban, behind all populism, Tony Blair said, lies the shadow of anti-Semitism. Macron in France said the Gilets jaunes movement against fuel price rises were anti-Semitic. So I think that's important, right? Moral panics aren't just lies. They're not just inventions. They respond to real social crises. And so the way to answer them isn't to just call people silly, but is to give people different and better ways of talking about the real issues that they're worried about.
Yeah, Jews control global finance. So if you hate capitalism, you're anti-Semitic. For sure. That's a legitimate argument that people have made. Someone said, this man schooled the fuck out of Michael Walker and his white liberal bullshit. And listen, Michael Walker is someone that he's done a lot of things that I do respect. But when I talk about people being on the back foot, a lot of these Novara people are guilty of this. Oh, I support Corbyn, but we need to take these claims seriously. And just willingly destroying their own movement. And giving credence to all these totally bad faith smears that are being used. Because you want to make sure you're able to touch this mainstream. The Novara people are able to touch this kind of mainstream popularity in UK media. They get invited to the big shows and they get invited onto the big panels. So you got to make sure that you're respectful. You got to make sure that you're respectful enough of these claims. And he's been guilty of that. Again, and not someone that I hate or anything like that. Someone that has done a lot of things that I respect. But we saw the exact same thing with Michael Walker as the person that I'm thinking of when, and I talked about this a couple of times, when October 7th happened, you had people like Michael Walker saying free Palestine, resistance is not terrorism. We got to support tearing down this Gaza prison fence. And then when the propaganda gets turned on and all of a sudden we start hearing all the horror stories about women being dragged through the streets and beheaded babies and all the boogeyman stories that start circulating around, then Michael Walker says well, I better delete those tweets. I don't want to be seen supporting any of that. Oh, no. I stand with Palestine, but no. I can't be seen supporting any of that. And now you're trying to have this position where it's no, I still support Palestine, but incoherent. I'm sorry, that's incoherent. That's not taking a moral stance. It's sad. It's just sad. You can't appease everyone. You can't take a stance where you're going to make everyone happy. There's no way to support Palestinians. There's no way to talk about the evils of Zionism without the very same people accusing you of supporting terrorism. So why try to appease them? It's not going to happen. Thoughts on Ash Sarkar? I mean, someone as well that has said things that I agree with a lot, but I think the whole Novara crew, I think, is kind of guilty of this, of trying to have it both ways. We support Corbyn, but also we take these anti-Semitism claims seriously. We support Palestine, but we got to condemn Hamas, and we got to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. It's not possible anymore. It is not possible. People have to decide to just take a side. You got to take a stance. You got to get off the fence. It helps no one. It might help your media career, but it helps no one. It doesn't help the movement. It certainly doesn't help Palestinians. It doesn't help combat anti-Semitism either. Novara completely fucked it after Corbyn was ousted. They could have helped build a new anti-imperialist British left, but they'd rather do fluff interviews with reasonable ex-Tory MPs about how we can agree on things and narcissistic, self-indulgent media appearances where they routinely look like fucking clowns. I don't need to look too far into what their stance on Ukraine and Putin has been, but guess what? I'm pretty sure I know what it was. Of course, we must stand against Putin's illegal war of aggression, but we should also pay attention to the different neo-Nazi groups. No, sorry. That doesn't work either. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know what their stance is. I fucking guarantee that that's what it is, though. I've never been more certain than anything in my life. Or it's the same thing. I can't. No, of course we don't support Assad, but we should talk about this. No. It's like fucking. It doesn't work anymore. Personally, I am finished playing this game, this respectability game, and trying to make people feel comfortable. What's Jordan's post on this? No, that's not it.
Well, the Israeli crimes and the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip continue during the last hour, and since the early beginning of this day could be considered one of the bloodiest day in the war that had been erupted between Palestinians and the Israeli occupation forces. But before we start talking about the Al-Wafa targeting, we'd like to send our condolences to our colleague at work, the Arabian correspondent Walid Dahdoh, for the loss of his wife that has been killed in an airstrike, and one of his also grandchildren. We ask Allah that they will rest in peace, and may their soul depart in ease. The ongoing strikes on Al-Wafa hospital has been ongoing during the last hour. Also, the attack was carried out in the surrounding areas of Al-Wafa hospital, which considered to be one of the main central hospitals that provide care for elderly people, and this hospital located in central the Gaza Strip. The Israeli attacks on hospitals continue in different areas. More than 14 hospitals become out of services, and more than 30 other medical healthcare centers also was become out of service.
Yeah, Tarek, you mentioned our colleague Wael Dahdoh, and I was going to come to you with that to find out what you'd been able to find out. This puts us in a we're extremely sad. We're extremely saddened, and we want to present our condolences as well. For viewers who are just joining us, we found out just over the last 15 minutes or so that one of our colleagues here at Al Jazeera, Wael Dahdoh, who has been a correspondent for us in Gaza, lost many members of his family, multiple members of his family, including his wife, his son, and his daughter, as a result of the shelling of their house in Nuseirat in the central part of the Gaza Strip. Tell us about Nuseirat refugee camp.
Let's keep talking about our commitment to freedom of the press,
or be a target in the Israeli bombardments.
Let's keep lecturing everyone about. Let's lecture Nicaragua about our freedom of the press.
One of the areas that are located to the far east of the southern areas of the Gaza Strip, which recommended to be a safe place, as what is so called the Israeli occupation forces.
No, it's just so pathetic.
To evacuate to.
Let's see if Breakthrough News has anything for us. It's from 8 days ago. It's not really that helpful. Oh, man. Whoa. Excuse me? That was not you, that was me. You want to watch from 3912. Let me just see if I can find something else. Let's actually take a look at this, okay? We got another clip from Katie Halper's show. I'm just going to take a little break and get up and go get a beverage, go to the bathroom and everything. Let me put this on.
Okay, calm down.
As always, very appreciative of Katie and her commentary that she does. She's
hello, everyone, and welcome to the Katie Halper
years,
Show. So excited to be here with you. We have a great show for you today. We have a total of 3 amazing guests. We have a return, a fan fave, and then we have 2 people making their Katie Halper Show debuts. We're so excited about this, and we're really excited to be here with you because there is such awful stuff happening in the world, and it's so important for us to come together and hear from really, really great speakers and really great guests. And there's so much propaganda out there and hasbara, as they say. And this is a place where you get to see people who break through that. Before we start, please, of course, do like the stream. That's a really easy way to
in Gaza, a real genocide.
Right. And
really electronic.
I'm going to post the link in the chat.
The battle for justice in Palestine. So welcome, Ali. Hello, how are you?
Support Katie's work,
Katie,
please.
how are you?
I'm well-ish, as I guess well-ish, but it's a very hard time, obviously.
I'll be right back, okay, folks?
How are you? Because you're someone who's on the front lines of what's happening right now.
Well, I'm very fortunate to not be on the front lines, but we at the Electronic Intifada have been trying our best to highlight those who are on the front lines and to give them a platform to speak to the world. And we've been doing that. And I think the work helps keep us from really being paralyzed by the true scale and horror of what is happening now, a genocide in Gaza, a real genocide.
Right. And you are in contact with people who are on the front lines. You're on the metaphorical front lines, I would say, in terms of your coverage and constantly bringing awareness and reporting on this issue. But I want to ask you what a couple things. One is if there are any stories you want to make sure this audience knows about and hears about, any of the people who you know there on the ground, any of their stories, and then get into kind of more in general what you think the media is leaving out about Gaza.
Well, I tell you that everyone who we speak to in Gaza, we work with about 24 writers in Gaza, and we have friends there. People I met when I was in Gaza 10 years ago. And simply staying in contact with people is very difficult. There is no electricity. Israel has cut it off. Israel's cut off the water, first of all, the water. There is no water coming into Gaza, no food coming in. So things like internet and communication are vital just for people to be able to communicate with each other as well, and that's cut off too. Many people have only a few minutes of connectivity a day, if at all. And I have to tell you, for a lot of Palestinians from Gaza who are in the United States or around the world, they do not know if their family is dead or alive because they cannot contact them. And I have to tell you that the relief I feel when I will get a text back or a WhatsApp message back from one of our friends or colleagues in Gaza is just, I breathe a sigh of relief, but it doesn't last because everyone in Gaza tells us that they're waiting hour to hour for whether they'll live or die. And there's now nobody that we know in Gaza or who is still in contact from Gaza that I know of who hasn't lost multiple and very often dozens of family members. Entire families are being wiped out, whole generation after generation, because Israel is deliberately targeting civilian homes in this massacre, in this revenge campaign. And it reminds me of what we see in Holocaust memorials, in Holocaust museums, or Holocaust survivor testimonies, where people will say, I'm the only survivor. I lost my whole family. Everyone was killed. My grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles. This is what's happening now to people in Gaza. Whole families are being wiped out because Israel is indiscriminately bombing apartment buildings, homes, with no warning, with everyone inside. And this is how we've gotten to the point now where, as of today, the known death toll, the confirmed death toll in Gaza is now 5,700, over 5,700. That includes 700 people killed in the last 24 hours. That's the rate at which Israel is exterminating people. Israel has exterminated 300 Palestinian children in Gaza in the last 24 hours, and more than 2,300 children since October 7. That's an extermination rate of about now getting close to 150 children per day. And there are thought to be...
We're doing okay, Nick.
There are more than 800 children missing under the rubble,
ranting and
more
raving
than
again.
1,600 people missing under the rubble. So the number of injured is close to 20,000, and the hospitals have collapsed. There is no electricity. They've run out of fuel. They have run out of medicine. The medical teams are working around the clock. They are exhausted. Medical teams have been attacked. Ambulances have been attacked. As of today, according to the health ministry in Gaza, 65 medical workers have been killed in these attacks. There's nowhere that's safe. There's no one coming to help. And you have 2.3 million people in a concentration camp with the water, I repeat, the water deliberately cut off. The water deliberately cut off. So people are now drinking polluted water, or they're drinking salty water, and that is causing severe health problems. There are already reports from the
For sure, man.
from
Yeah.
the United Nations on the ground that we have a lot.
If you just talk about
very
doing a human
serious
rights
childhood
genocide, then it's actually
diseases
okay.
spreading, because more than 1 million people are displaced out of 2.3 million people with no shelter, nowhere to go, no safe place. And then when they get there, you have hundreds of thousands of people sheltering in United Nations schools. But there are whole families of dozens of people there with no sanitation, no water, no bathrooms, no way to wash, no way to shower. And the United Nations has actually abandoned most of northern Gaza. Instead of remaining with the people that they serve, the UN...
even when they're
relief and
like,
works
that's the
agents-
amazing thing about the UN. Like, Israel is killing UN representatives. Like, and when the UN says, like, you know, the Hamas violence didn't happen in a vacuum, Israel is still like accusing them of supporting Hamas, and they're literally killing UN representatives. And like they still can't do anything to really stop it. And they're still being accused of supporting Hamas, like, by the Israeli government. It is absolutely ludicrous. It's insane.
Took the cowardly and incomprehensible step of abandoning the shelters in northern Gaza. The UN presence is vital to deter further Israeli attacks on these shelters. And we actually have UN workers who have gone on the media, who've gone on Al Jazeera and gone on other Arabic media and said, we demand that the UN leadership come back to the shelters, that they come back to the people. But they said, we as workers will remain here and die with the people that we're trying to serve and protect if necessary. It is a catastrophic situation. It is a genocide in a the very real meaning of that word. It is a Holocaust, and it is being done by Israel purely for revenge, based on largely on a lot of lies about what happened on October 7th.
Mm. And why do you use the words Holocaust and extermination and genocide?
Because that's what's happening. There's no other way to describe it, Katie. As I said, entire families, at this point, hundreds of entire families have been simply exterminated in their homes. And Israel is dropping huge bombs on them, huge bombs, these MK-82 and MK-84 bombs that the United
Here's the
States
link.
provides. That
Please support
that
Katie's work.
Shatter into thousands of pieces of red-hot shrapnel that just tears bodies apart. And this is how Israel has killed now getting close to 6,000 civilians, 40% of them children, in the last two plus weeks. And to put this in perspective, Katie, we all hear in the media about how terrible Russia is and how cruel what Russia is doing in Ukraine is.
No comparison.
According to the United Nations, the number of children killed in the armed conflict in Ukraine since February of 22 is around 600 children. So that's 600 children in the whole of Ukraine, a vast country compared to Palestine, with a population multiple times bigger than the Gaza Strip. And in the Gaza Strip, Israel has killed over 2,000 children in a population of 2.3 million people in the space of 2 weeks. This is a genocide. And when you cut off water and food to a civilian population, this is, as every authority has said in the past 2 weeks, a crime against humanity. This is what the Nazis did to people, Katie.
I mean, like, and again, like we've been talking about the depravity of this bombing campaign since the 7th now. And it's getting worse. Like the last couple of nights have been like the worst that it has been. Like that's how depraved it is. It's getting worse and worse and more intense, the bombings. It's hard to believe this many people are dying, cutting off food and water and bombing them. Yeah, seriously. It is so depraved. It is so depraved to trap people in this prison camp, control all the food and water, the medicine that gets in, and then repeatedly dropping thousands of bombs on these people. It's literally one of the most depraved things that I have seen happening, like in our lifetime, and all our human rights supporting, rules-based order ass governments all support it. Look at that Biden administration guy. It's a war. It's ugly. I wish I could tell you something different. That's their response to it. It is so fucking depraved. Look at the ghouls quote tweeting Bernie's tweet referring to 5K dead. I mean, I don't doubt that there's lots of people that are trying to dispute that. Bernie's not been good enough on this. Sorry. Bernie has failed this moment. He's failed this test. Corbyn is embarrassing Bernie in terms of like what the response should be. Bernie hasn't even called for a ceasefire. That's pathetic. That's embarrassing. Remember all those Americans that got mad at me a few weeks ago when I talked about Bernie like instantly endorsing Biden? All these people, shut up, Canadian. He was talking about a movement and it wasn't up to him. All these people getting mad at me, and now Bernie's over there. He can't even call for a fucking ceasefire when Israel is bombing hundreds and thousands of kids, killing thousands of kids. He has failed this moment. And Parenti was right about him. That's right. And we're seeing, unfortunately, all the staffers shaming him. Yeah. And we're seeing, unfortunately, I'm sure President Bernie would have been in a better situation than President Biden. What would be the result of President Sanders in this moment? We're seeing what it would be. It would be identical. It would be identical to what the Biden administration is saying. That's just a fact.
Cut off their food and water in the ghettos. They subjected them to disease, which is what Israel is doing now, deliberately, knowingly subjecting people to disease. If this is not a genocide, if this is not a Holocaust, then nothing is.
And also you have the simultaneous bragging of Israel and their supporters about how surgical their precision is.
I don't think, no, Katie, they're not doing that this time. This is an important distinction.
Okay.
They're not even mentioning anything about surgical strikes.
Gaza, when they were doing pretty much the same thing.
Question of internationalism still haunting the left 100 years later. Maybe eventually we're going to fucking wrap our minds around this one. Basic internationalism. Maybe eventually we're gonna figure this out. Are you JJ McCulloch on YouTube channel? Yeah, that's right. I am. That's true. That's me. JJ McCulloch is what they call me. And thank you for joining.
It on a very slightly smaller scale. I mean, I don't want to minimize the utter horrors and atrocities Israel committed in the past. They used to claim, oh, yes, we're doing it surgically, or we're warning people beforehand. they used to do this thing they call the knock on the roof, where they would
Right.
fire what they call a warning rocket at a house. And it was definitely not foolproof. A lot of people were killed in that. But they're not saying that.
Yeah.
Now they've actually come out and said that our priority is damage, not precision. And they're not even firing the warning rockets that they claim is the way that they warn civilians. They're not doing that now. They're just bombing homes with people in them.
Yeah. So you're saying that they're not even doing the normal talking points. They're openly embracing that we're prioritizing like force over precision.
Damage over precision
over
was
precision,
the words of a top Israeli military official. We're prioritizing damage over precision. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Right. I have heard people stick with the warning talking points, and I still hear people, I shouldn't be shocked, but I was a little bit shocked that when the hospital was bombed, people were saying, well, Israel wouldn't do that.
Yeah, Israel would do that because Israel has killed 65 medical workers. They have attacked and destroyed 25 ambulances, and they have openly threatened these hospitals.
Right.
They've openly threatened them. But part of what Israel does when something like the attack on the Al-Ahli hospital happened, they throw out all these, doubts. They say, oh, well, it wasn't us. It was a fallen
20
rocket.
different stories.
This, it was that. Exactly as they did when they murdered Shireen Abu Akleh,
they try to confuse you.
Journalist in May of 2022.
That shit doesn't work on us anymore.
Now, let's say for the sake of argument, just for the sake of argument, that Israel wasn't responsible for the massacre at the Al-Ahli hospital a few days ago. Israel is not denying all the other massacres.
Right.
Israel is not saying, oh, we didn't bomb all those houses and kill all those dozens and hundreds of families. They're not saying that. They're saying we're doing it. We did it. And there have been a few occasions when they have bombed very large high-rise buildings for no other purpose than collective punishment, where they have issued warnings. And that makes it into the media. So people get the impression, oh, they are warning people because they did it when we bombed this big building, or they did it when they bombed this huge complex of apartment buildings in southern Gaza the other day. But most of the time, they are not issuing any kind of warning. They are bombing family homes with the entire family inside. And people have nowhere to go, Katie, because the other talking point the Israelis say is they say, oh, well, we told Palestinians to evacuate
Iranian
the whole
missiles.
north half of Gaza, which is the entirety of Gaza City.
I'm sorry you had to experience that.
Evacuating a city like Baltimore or evacuating a city like Chicago, but this is much more populated. There's no fuel for transport, so people, the elderly, the disabled, people who use wheelchairs, pregnant women, people with babies, with young children, and no food and no water are supposed to evacuate. How? On foot, while they're being bombed dozens of miles to where? There's nowhere safe. So Israel said, go south. Well, the heaviest bombing in the last few days has been in the areas Israel told people to evacuate to, places like Khan Yunis, like Rafah in the south of Gaza. Israel is bombing the heck out of them. So there is literally no safe place to go and no way to get
no
there.
Church,
and people
no
don't
hospital,
have food and water. I'm talking to people in Gaza or messaging them when I can, and people are down to their last reserves of whatever they have in the house, and there's no water. They're rationing. If they have some water, they're rationing it. People are getting a little bit every day, and they're saying, we're giving it to the kids first, and we're giving food to the kids first. So this is a ghetto that they're bombing and starving at the same time. This is a genocide. This is a Holocaust in every meaning of that word.
What is Israel's goal here?
The first goal is pure revenge and spite. This is a colonial power. It has
But they were told to evacuate the ghetto, yeah.
People with hatred and contempt. Remember that Yoav Gallant, the defense minister who gave the order to cut off water and fuel and food and medicine to the 2.3 million people, half of them children, called the population of Gaza human animals. And we've had other top officials in the last 2 weeks
They're
referring
so
to the
open about
population
this.
as human beasts.
And we still have to cast doubt on it.
As many human rights groups have warned, these Israeli policies, accompanied by this genocidal language, is a real sign that a genocide is taking place. So it's hatred and revenge. And it is, I think, Israel hopes to take advantage of what it has billed as the Israeli 9/11 with, a lot of fake atrocity stories about what happened on October 7th, like the fake story of 40 Jewish beheaded babies and the completely unverified claims of rapes and mass shootings, which Netanyahu claimed that Palestinians were shooting Israelis over mass graves. Absolutely no evidence of any of that has come up. They haven't produced a shred of evidence of that, but they're using.
That's good that Lula said that. I mean, this is one issue where he's not been as good because he is kind of buddy with Netanyahu as well.
The Israeli population and the world public
China should be saying the same thing.
Into a genocidal rage, which would allow them to possibly expel the Palestinian population in Gaza to Egypt. And at the very least, they want to wreak a revenge that is so great that they think the Palestinian people will simply surrender and give up.
Right. So I wanted to also offer my condolences because I know that one of the people who has been killed is Huda Susi, who did work for Electronic Intifada. And in fact, as you can see here, her pinned tweet is, "Hi everyone, here's my latest on the Electronic Intifada website for today." And also she thanks Rifat al-Arir, who's also in Gaza, whose home has been bombed and is now in, I believe, in a shelter. So what happened to Huda?
Well, what we know about Huda is, and she wrote a really beautiful, moving piece for us in May of 2021 when Israel was bombing Gaza at that time, about how her parents' apartment building was bombed and she had to go and see them and find them, and she went out to brave the bombs. Her husband said, "No, you can't go because it's too dangerous," but she went anyway. And she found her parents in their wrecked building and managed to hug her elderly parents, and she survived. And she said, I hugged my parents, but there's going to be no more hugs for Huda al-Susi's parents if they survive, because this time she didn't make it. This time she was killed along with 7 members of her husband's family in their home. But her husband
How many
and her
stories
2
are
young
there of this?
Did survive.
And I'm sorry, but I keep thinking, while we hear the nonstop descriptions of the absolute horror, entire families being wiped out, journalists, totally indiscriminate, hospitals, churches, I just keep thinking about this motherfucker at Columbia University saying, I'm in danger. These pro-terror student groups are a danger to my children. As a dad, I'm the victim here. I just keep thinking about that guy now. Yeah, we watched the whole thing earlier, Nick, and I was so mad. I think today I've been about as mad as I've ever been on the show today. Watching some of these clips, but just it's sick. It's delusional at this point. It is delusional to try and make you're a fucking college professor at Columbia University, making yourself and your shitty kids the victims, while actual kids are being blown to pieces at every single day now, hundreds of kids. That is depraved. It's sick and delusional. And I just keep thinking about that guy while we're hearing stories of the horror that is being inflicted on people.
Rifat al-Arir, I translate.
We saw that clip as well, Gio Vinici.
On Twitter, is also another wonderful He's a literature professor, a frequent contributor to the Electronic Intifada.
We got
and
mad
he has
Rob
been
today.
a mentor to so many young writers in Gaza like Huda and many others whose work we have published and continue to publish at the Electronic Intifada. I don't know if we can put the Electronic Intifada website up just for your viewers to see, but I have to say one of the most amazing and impressive things to me is that we have writers in Gaza like Rifat, whose house was bombed, and he is now in a shelter, in a UN school shelter with 24 members of his family, have continued to say, and we tell them, we say we do.
Merit Stiles just put out a statement that's very similar to what she fired Sarah Jamaah for. What the fuck is the Ontario NDP doing? Well, what they're doing, what the Social Democrats always do, which is trying to sit on the fence. And you see how far that gets you. And the thing is, it's different. That's the thing. It's, you can't try to appease people if you're the NDP. Like, look, we appeased you. Because what's different here? She says, yesterday was the deadliest in Gaza so far. 700 people killed. Half were children. Neighborhoods leveled. Families in mourning. We continued our call on the federal government to support an end to the siege, urgent humanitarian aid, release of hostages, and immediate ceasefire. The difference is, though, I think, is that Sarah Jamaah didn't play the whole condemnation game. She didn't condemn Hamas this time, but overall, they've been clear about that. And Sarah Jamaah, in her initial statement, linked the violence that was happening, the violence that happened on October 7th, with settler colonialism and apartheid, and centered Israel's role in creating that situation. So now they're trying to sit on the fence. They're saying, okay, we weren't respectful enough. We didn't condemn Hamas enough. But now that we've done that, now that we've sacrificed someone from our own caucus to show how serious we are about it, now we can talk about the violence of Israel. Because now we show how we have credibility. Guess what? The people that are the Zionists don't care. They still think you support Hamas. They still think you support terrorism. They still think you want to kill Jewish people. And all your fence sitting and all your equivocations and your efforts to appear reasonable about this has only diluted and destroyed your own position. Yeah, you have to pretend that it started on October 7th, and you can talk about the violence that happened, but if you talk about any context, that's where you get into trouble. That is where you get into trouble when you talk about the context or history from before, like 3 weeks ago.
Not want any of you going out to do reporting. It's too dangerous. You know, if you have the wherewithal and are interested in writing a personal story or what you're seeing in your immediate surroundings, that's fine. But we don't encourage our writers at all to go out and face any additional danger or to do anything. You know, people are just surviving, but they have continued to write.
It started on 10/7, just like it started on 2/24. Exactly.
WhatsApp.
Don't talk about context. That only helps the baddies.
Intifada via WhatsApp, sometimes in the form
I need to
of
court the
audio
voter that
messages.
hates me. It's that classic social democrat or liberal refrain. I need to court these voters that fucking hate me by throwing my own MPs under the bus. The ONDP might go from 0% to 2% in Thornhill. Great job, guys. And they won't, actually. That's the funniest thing, is that they will not. Context is a bad guy of the day talking point. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the only means of communication people have, if they have any. And so it's just an incredible privilege for us to be able to continue to publish writers like Rifat and like Huda, who unfortunately will not be able to write again. But she had been pitching articles to us just a couple of weeks ago before this latest escalation. And it's just, as I say, it's incalculable. So much.
That's right, Jimmy.
We can't process it yet. Even people in Gaza say
we're the human rights respecting
scale of the losses.
Country.
Whole families killed. Every day I'm seeing friends in Gaza saying, my cousin was killed, my uncle was killed, my brother was killed, my sister was killed, my teacher, my favorite professor was killed, my doctor was killed. It's indiscriminate. It is on a scale we've never seen. It is a genocide, and it's something that, for me, the world can never be the same again.
No,
after
we
this,
can't go
because
back.
When I see how many people supported a genocide, and Katie, we're brought up with this.
No going
what
back.
would you do if
Never
it ever
again,
happened
right.
again? Never again. Never again is now, as the saying goes. And lots of people we've discovered is saying, yes, again. Do it again. Do it to these people. Wipe them out. Teach them a lesson. Show them what we're made of. They're human animals. They're human beings. They deserve this. They brought it on themselves. All the things that people said in the past to justify genocides and Holocaust, they're saying now about Palestinians, and cheering for it in some cases. And so it turns out never again is bullshit, Katie.
Yeah. So you have two articles that I just wanted to
I might have a
touch
brief
on
echo here.
that
One
I think
sec.
relate to what you're saying, because we've seen a simultaneous kind of caricature, cartoon villain representation of Hamas, and also at the same time the big lie that everything that Israel does is because they want to protect their citizens and they want Jews to be safe. And you have two stories that I think kind of undermine both of those narratives. So let's start with
it's been used by every genocidal
the story
regime
that you
throughout
guys
history.
did. You and David Sheen did about Israeli forces allegedly shooting their own civilians, according to a kibbutz survivor.
Yeah.
Let me just
Multiple stories of this.
and then let's just
This stuff plus
here's the
comments
article.
that these released hostages
So
have made
can you,
should paint a very different story about October 7th and what actually happened.
The story that Israel told the world and told its people is that on October 7th, Hamas fighters crossed into Israel with one purpose, which was to find and kill as many Jews as possible. And that's when we had the fake stories about beheaded Jewish babies, the completely unverified stories.
I'm sorry, but it's not true.
One person.
At the very least, there's more to the story than that.
To that,
at the very, very least.
And the fake story from Netanyahu of Jews being lined up over mass graves and machine gunned into them, like the Nazis and their Ukrainian accomplices did at Babi Yar in Kiev during the Second World War. None of that has happened, but they say that 1,300 people were killed, and they say that Hamas killed all those people. Hamas has not denied that Israeli civilians were killed, but what they said is that we never targeted them. We never went with the purpose of killing Israeli civilians. And in fact, we had this testimony from an Israeli woman, Yasmin Porat.
What do they say? 1,400 civilians. But like, what I want to know is how many of these civilians, as Israel claims, were in the IDF. I've seen plenty of footage of this operation going after these IDF targets, going after on IDF bases. Yeah, Hamas wants to kill all Jews and yet return Jewish hostages. Like they've not been forthcoming with that information. Like I talked before about how every single person in Israel is painted with that civilian brush. Even people that are in their colonial, heavily armed, highly trained, occupying army, and still get referred to as civilians. Even settlers that are being armed and are committing terrorist attacks, and that was going on way before October 7th. Terrorist attacks in the West Bank, and pogroms. Well, they're civilians too. If you're in the IDF, you're a civilian. If you're an armed terrorist, a settler, you're a civilian. Every single person's a civilian. Official numbers I saw were 688 and 80% IDF police. And like you said, a lot of those numbers are civilians, and we don't know what the actual number is. A lot of those numbers of civilians are coming from crossfire at this music festival and these kibbutzes being like bombed and like being shot with tanks. And major crossfires with these people that were trying to take hostages. We don't know the exact number, you know? But we do know that the initial story, like Ali is pointing out, we do know that the initial story of October 7th, that it was just random indiscriminate violence against civilians, is not true. I'm sorry, but it's just not true. No, that's not good, up the Reds. No, it is not good. Sending Biden, Austin sending carrier groups with Patriot batteries and THAAD to the Mediterranean. Israeli government have only released the names of 300 dead on October 7th, according to Abby Martin on her podcast this week. And I think Haaretz did more. Like, Haaretz has talked about 600-something people. And I think this is the lesson for me. I hope it's the lesson for people that watch this show, and I hope more people start to pick up on this. But in these moments, we saw it in the beginning of the Ukraine war, and we saw it in the beginning of this on October 7th, when the propaganda is strongest, and it's as hard as it is to withstand it, you have to ask these questions. And you can't, especially when it comes to the United States or Israel, they lie. Repeatedly. They've lied repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again. There has to be a point where no matter how mad it makes people or upset it makes you or how much it hurts your career personally, you have to point out you have to not just instantly believe these fucking lies every single time. $681 according to Israel's own unverified stats.
The story you just showed that I wrote with David Sheen.
They have unbelievably well-funded propaganda apparatuses. Yeah, of course, it's got the whole mainstream media apparatus in like every Western country. It's the most well-funded and sophisticated propaganda machine that has ever been devised in all of humanity. And that's why those moments are so difficult. That's why in those moments you do feel insane. Because there's a massive machine that's meant to give you that feeling. I don't see how you could believe anything at face value they say now. It's true. Like, that's not being insensitive. It's certainly not being anti-Semitic to say these people that lie over and over and over again. I'm talking about the Israeli government. They lie over and over and over again. Eventually, you have to just stop believing it. And when they say one thing, assume that it's a lie or assume that the story is a lot more complex than what they're making it out to be, at the very least. If I lied to you every single day, and I don't, chat, if I lied to you every single day, I would expect that you stop believing my bullshit after a certain point. It's a natural reaction, actually. And people always fall for it. They always fall for it. Even like well-intentioned people. Like I was saying, I stand with Palestine. Oh, whoa, and I can't say that now, though. Oh, boy. Of course I stand with Palestine, but no, not when these kind of horror stories are floating around. Then I got to apologize, and I got to delete my tweets, and I got to walk it back, and I got to do this and that and this and that. That is a good picture of Petro. Interesting timing, too.
Israeli state radio on October 15th, where she gave her account of what happened in Kibbutz Be'eri. She and her partner had escaped from this rave. And again, the Israeli stories about the rave are also quite questionable, but that's another point. She says, so we escaped
it's also
from
questionable
the rave
going
when
to
the
a rave
rockets
on a
started coming
concentration
over.
camp border.
She never says people were being machine gunned at the rave or anything like that. She says the Qassam rockets were coming over, so we escaped in the car to Kibbutz Be'eri. We found shelter in the home of a couple called Hadass and Adi Dagan. We hid there. I'm summarizing her story, but people can read it and listen to it. She gave this interview on Israel radio, and we have the whole audio with subtitles. People can listen to it themselves. So they found shelter at this house with this Israeli couple. Then the Palestinian fighters came. She said it was very frightening. They came. They found us in the safe room in the house. They took us to another house where 8 people were being held, and we were there. she said they treated us very humanely. They didn't lay a finger on us. They were, they gave us water. They were very, she says they treated us humanely. That's her word. And everything was calm. And she says they were asking them, like, where is the Israeli army? Where's the police? Because that's who they wanted to fight. The Hamas fighters were waiting for the Israeli forces to show up because that's who they came to fight. They didn't show up. So she said, the kidnappers told us, this is her, speaking, I'm paraphrasing, call the police and tell them that we're here with a bunch of Israeli civilians and they better come. And they actually told her, tell them that we have 40 people that we're holding, when there were in fact only 12 Israelis in that particular situation. Anyway, she says 2 hours later, the Israeli forces showed up and they started a gunfight. They just started shooting indiscriminately and even firing tank shells into
Hannibal
the houses.
doctrine.
And she says in the interview,
listen to what these escaped these released hostages are saying, and ask yourself whether they're valuable to Israel and their propaganda apparatus alive.
Yes, undoubtedly.
Telling these kinds of
For a
stories.
second time, and she says, yes, that's what happened. She says that a lot of these people were killed. And people have to understand, Katie, that Israel has something called the Hannibal Doctrine.
There we go.
Which says that if Israeli forces are seeing one of theirs being abducted, they have the right to use overwhelming force to kill the captors and the person who's being taken, the prisoner, because Israel doesn't want its enemies,
the human rights
to have living
respecters,
Israelis as potential bargaining chips.
Right. No, they don't want hostages
the
released.
Hannibal Doctrine.
They're openly
Now,
talking about
Yasmin
what happened
Harafi
yesterday as like being one of the worst propaganda disasters in their whole history. You think they want more of that?
Was the clearest and one of the first testimonies, but now more and more are coming out, and our friends at Mondoweiss did a follow-up article where they highlighted some of these other testimonies, which, by the way, are all appearing in Israeli media in Hebrew. They are not appearing.
Yeah, well, Jameh, you say old friend fell into the grifters, and even having them accept these people had to constantly lie to them. Their rationales, the other side, are doing bigger lies, so who cares about the white lies from their side? I mean, that's ultimately what people who... The cognitive dissonance becomes so much that they can't ignore the great crimes of our own empire, the American empire, which includes client states like Israel. And they know they can't really support that, so that's what they tell themselves, right? Well, the other guys are worse. So China's worse, Russia's worse, the Arabs are worse. So unfortunately, I don't like it, but I'm forced to continue supporting my empire, which I materially benefit from. It's a really cowardly stance to take.
In English language media, except independent media like the Electronic Intifada and Mondoweiss. Right. Although now
we didn't want to do it, but we had to. I mean, that's exactly what the Biden administration's saying. We saw in that clip. No, I just wish I could tell you something different. I just wish I could tell you something different, that kids are going to continue dying. But unfortunately, like depraved. Seeing the Zionists I've seen, there's no action Israel could conceivably do that they wouldn't support, and no lie they could tell they wouldn't believe. No, it's true. It's just they instantly, like with the hospital thing was the ultimate example of this. I was watching that play out at the time, and I'm thinking to myself, is this the moment when people start saying like, hey, what are we supporting here? This is bad. But no, it's like, that's the attitude they take. First of all, they instantly lie about it, and people instantly believe the lies. And then eventually, when it comes out that like they admit that they did it, if that ever happens, they'll be like, "Well, I'm sure they had good reason," and the Hamas was there, so whatever. It's going to take a mass movement, and that's the encouraging thing, the inspiring thing right now is there is a mass movement that's being built right now. There's a global mass movement happening right now, and that's what I'm telling people that are on the fence. Get off the fence and join this global mass movement of the people even for the people from within the empire and outside the empire that correctly recognize what is happening right now. Yeah, well, and like we talk about with Kwame Ture, a real mass movement, not some short-term mobilization. It's got to be militantly organized, this mass movement. It can't just dissipate. The energy can't just dissipate, and it's not going to. That's why I'm encouraged. We think this mass movement's going to be absorbed by the Democrats. No, it's not. It's going to sweep away these Democrats and liberals. They won't be able to absorb this because they're so obviously supporting the wrong side of this movement. It has to come from outside the U.S. The U.S. is a lost cause. I still think it's amazing to see all the people in the U.S. and Canada that are supporting Palestine right now, despite all the propaganda from inside the empire.
Starting to see others picking them up. And Katie, if you can put that tweet you had from me back up on the screen, I just want to show folks one other thing, one other story. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, because for me, with my eyesight. Yeah, so this is another testimony that I found at the JTA, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, which is another incident. But you can see here, they continued to drive. So this survivor is saying that she was taken with a group of Israelis in the back of a tuk-tuk, a little, open back, like a little pickup truck. But she says they continued to drive with us in the back toward Gaza when an IDF helicopter appeared above us. At some point, the helicopter shot at the terrorists, the driver, and the others. There was screaming in the tuk-tuk. All the terrorists were dead and we were alive, except for one of the women with us. She had died in the arms of her daughter who had come to the kibbutz. So this is another incident where it was the Israeli army shooting at the Palestinians and at the Israelis who are with them indiscriminately. And more examples of that are coming out. So what needs to happen, Katie, is there needs to be, first of all, people need to know Israel lies about everything, and you should not take anything Israel says at face value. Not about beheaded babies.
Assume it's a
not
lie.
about rapes. Not about people being machine gunned over mass graves. And there should be an independent inquiry, perhaps an international inquiry into exactly what happened on October 7th, because Israel is not telling the truth. But I don't think Israel will allow that, because it's trying to push the narrative that Hamas equals ISIS in order to justify, or at least distract people's attention from the genocide. And this, Katie, is why Israel, I think, is not interested in having Israeli civilians released from Gaza, even though Hamas has said it wants to release all the civilians and has in fact started doing
Joe
so.
Brandon
Because
has
the civilians who come out, just as the civilians who are held in their houses on October 7th and afterwards, are saying we were treated very humanely. And that's what happened with the elderly lady, Yocheved Lifshitz, who was released yesterday night. She came out and said there was that famous video of her. I don't know if you want to show
They're
it.
losing their minds over this.
Yeah, let's show.
I'm going to take I'm going to move away from this video, I think, for a little bit. I only have about another 30 minutes to go. We talked a lot about the whole hostage thing yesterday, so they're probably going to go over some of the similar stuff that we were kind of getting at yesterday. I got to take a brief time to remind folks to please, if you can, support this channel. I'm going to link Katie's channel one more time, because Katie does really valuable work on this subject, and everyone should be supporting her streams, and she's done a lot of really good work over this as usual. But I got to remind you as well to please, if you can, support this program. I don't even know if my alerts are working. They were working earlier and then they stopped. Again, I've been having some weird tech issues today. But if you can, folks, I am a mere minor 23 subs away from the goal. So if you are watching today, if you have found my coverage of this issue or my commentary or my analysis valuable in some way, if it's been valuable to have this community at a time when we're inundated with this nonstop stream of propaganda, if that has been helpful for you in any way, please remember that I'm not really able to do this program each and every day unless people subscribe and continue to
you can count on me
show the kind of levels of generosity that they have and support this
22
channel.
now.
Bolden, thanks for the 26 months.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
and
to
my alerts
talk
seem
you
to be
through
working
all
again.
this.
That's nice. GMO radio
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hey, Larry, how's it going? Thank you, GMO Radio. Sunny Sola, thanks for the 4 gifted subs. And thanks, GMO Radio, for the gifted sub to Hamas Official. Always have a wide variety of different perspectives that are represented in this community, in the chat. Valiant community member. Oh my goodness. So again, if anyone else can please subscribe to this program, as always, it's much appreciated. Halfway to the goal.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Tonebox, thank you very, very much for 5 gifted subs from the Tonebox. That's very, very kind of you, Tonebox. Thank you for that. We are on the verge of a hype train now. We're 12 subs away from the goal. A mere minor 12 subs away. So once again, if anyone wants to support this program, it is $5 per month. It is totally free of charge with an Amazon Prime account, which you can very easily convert to a Twitch Prime sub, totally free, and it's a way to support the channel. You can support the work that I do on here. You can join the community. You can get all the tiny little images. Some of the very best tiny little images on this whole platform. Little Larry is going with his friends trick-or-treating without me. I'm feeling weird about it. Oh, I would totally feel weird about that as well, Larry.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dr. Maggot, thank you for the gifted sub as well. I really appreciate that. And we're only 11 subs away from the goal. Only 11 subs away, and we got a bit of a hype train going now. So I hope people don't mind. I'm just taking a few minutes to do this. It's not my favorite thing to do. As you know, as if you're on here trying to make a living on twitch.tv, the number must go up every single day. So I hope people appreciate that and understand that. Bonbon C3PO, thank you for gifting a sub to Ali in HD. Thank you for that, Bonbon. I appreciate that. We're 64% of the way through this level 3 hype train, and we're 10 subs away from the goal. 10 measly subs away from the goal. So not only could a few gifted subs right now get us out to next level of this hype train, but would get us within grasping distance of the sub goal, which I must try and hit every single day that I do this, so I can earn a minor living from doing this kind of commentary. Because certainly, look at the way that our media talks about Palestine. You can't. Sarah Jamal just got fired from the NDP, our Social Democratic Party. No one in Canadian media is going to be hiring me to talk about this. I am not going to be getting hired by CBC or Global News.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through
National
all this.
Post.
Do you want to be paid
else.
for your work? How dare you?
No one is going to be paying me to do this. The only way I'm able to do this commentary and make a living from it is if people support the show, which people do in huge numbers, which is something that I find absolutely incredible.
You're going to have good old Rob to
something that
talk
I'm very,
you through
very
all
grateful
this.
for. Ninja Can, thank you for the 6 months, tier 1. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Joe, as well. First gifted sub in the channel from Joe110. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dr. Maggot, thank you for another gifted sub. Got through that next level of the hype train. That's fun. That's cool. Thank you, Dr. Maggot, for all the support. You deserve a regular segment on Fox and Friends with your good friend Brian Kilmeade.
To talk you through all this.
I agree with that. Well, that's what I was talking about that with Justin Potier when he was on this show a couple months ago. It's like, even just as the token crazy lefty guy, put me on TV. Like, I know you don't support this kind of viewpoint, but even as whoa, look at this extremist we found. Look at the kind of crazy shit he's going to say. If it's so extreme, you should be able to debunk it and dismantle it easily with your centrist powers of persuasion. So put me on there. Put me on there as the crazy guy. You can go and dunk on me and you can go and do whatever you want, But not even that. Not even as the token crazy guy. Can I get booked on mainstream media in this country, even though I have a larger media platform than most of the journalists in this country, by the way? I don't mean to brag. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I have a bigger platform than most mainstream journalists in this country. Do I get hired by CBC? No. Do I get hired by any of these mainstream media outlets? No. That's why I have to do this. That's why I have to sit here on Twitch and make the tiny little number go up every single day. And Weird Luck, thanks for the gifted sub as well. I really appreciate that. Weird Luck. Thank you for that. And we're 6 subs away, folks. 6 subs away from the goal. So who's going to be the brave hero that's going to step up and support this channel and help drag my tired ass across the finish line again? It's so close now. It's within reach. It's within grasp. 6 measly subs away. Do I respect CBC? No. Are we friends? No. That's the thing. Even when you watch something like that, are you friends with the commentators that you're watching on CBC or CTV or Global News or whatever it is? No. Are you personal friends with me? Yes. When you subscribe to this channel, we become personal friends, and it's real. It's real. It's not parasocial. We're really friends, and it's not a cult. That's right, Larry. Thank you. It is not a cult or a pyramid scheme. It's simply a 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. That's all it is. What's wrong with that? I keep telling people my personal friend and not cult leader Rob when I mention you. And that's good. That's accurate. That's an accurate way of describing our relationship. B-Rat. So what do you say, folks? What do we got? 209 viewers, 6 subs to go. 6 subs to go to meet the goal for today, and then I can stop bugging you about it. I can move past this segment. It's my least favorite segment. It's your least favorite segment. It's everyone's least favorite segment.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Barbara, thank you very much for the gifted sub. You've been so supportive since joining the community, Barbara, and I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. That's okay, Larry. And of course, if you're financially struggling right now, don't subscribe. Do not subscribe or gift subs. If you're financially struggling, if you have disposable income and you like this program and this community, then yes, please subscribe if you can. Are there any generous arms manufacturers in chat? Well, I don't believe so. Anyways, that was true. I was going to do that bit where I start saying we're funded by the Chinese Dongsheng missiles.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Cutman, thank you for the gifted sub.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Anon, thank you for 2 gifted subs. Very kind of you, Anon. Thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The coveted Dongsheng endorsement. Can you imagine how cool that would be?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
From my Dongsheng dividends.
Thank you, Matt, for 26 months tier 1. Thank you. That's wonderful. We're 1 sub away, folks. 1 measly sub away from the goal. Sponsored by BRI for perpetual mutual prosperity and cooperation. I would love that, frankly. I think that would be a good investment. That would be a good BRI investment if they gave me a little grant. I'm rebuilding my forge so I can forge pistol barrels and I'll be an arms manufacturer. Well, good, yeah. Exactly. Well, the thing is, we're only sponsored by the mom and pop. The mom and pop arms manufacturers. The Belt Road and Slub Initiative, yes. My son has arms. I sort of manufactured those. That's right, me too. As a father, I am a father. I am a father, and you must support genocide, or it makes me upset. God, just sicko behavior. Get your phones out. That guy. Oh boy, that guy. Thank you, Banana Grabber. I reset my password and logged into the desktop version of Twitch on my phone just to resub. Thank you, Banana Grabber. I read Harry Potter to him every night. Fucking good for you. Good for you. I don't know, like, what, do you want a fucking award? Jesus. That guy is really something else. I drive a Toyota Corolla. Not supporting genocide makes me unsafe. I drive a Hyundai Elantra. I'm going to start doing the same thing. Two can play at that game. Two can play at that game. I am a father of a beautiful 7-year-old son. I read Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring to him every night. And I demand that you support the Belt and Road Initiative. I demand that you support destabilizing and destroying our barbaric, violent empire. Do your part to support the oppressed and colonized people around the world.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
that have been victimized by colonialism and imperialism. Thank you, Dr. Maggot. Dr. Maggot, I appreciate all the support.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I really appreciate that, Dr. Maggot. Thank you. And thank you, Why So Dankness, as well, for the 6 months tier 1. My Elantra has a rear view camera. I don't actually have that. My Elantra does not have that. That's too bougie for me. I go old school. I go analog. All right? What's wrong with mirrors? Okay, you can't use a mirror? I actually like those rear view cameras. Those seem really handy, but I've never had a car that actually has one. They must have introduced those in 2015. Yeah, I think we got ours in like 2012 or so, 2013. Anyway, folks, look at that. Thank you again. As always, I really, really appreciate, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support that I get from this community. Please don't, despite all my calls for slubs and all my bullshit, don't ever think for one moment that I don't appreciate so much the level of support that people in this community show me and this channel and the work that I do on here. I do not take it for granted, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you. Working on a joke about rear view cameras and being a fan of fat asses, but it's not coming together. Yeah. Keep working on that. Keep workshopping that. And he said, rear view, I barely know her. Is that it? Is that something? We'll keep working on that one, okay? Keep that in the... I don't think that's something, yeah. Rear viewer, I barely know her. Probably would have made more sense, yeah. Listen, you try to do this live with hundreds of people watching, all right? You try to workshop genius wordplay. We're going to circle back on that. Exactly. Okay. So I don't know what's next. I think I've pretty much talked about everything that I planned on talking about. I can hang out for another couple minutes. But thanks so much, everyone, for supporting the channel as usual. Why has every stand-up comedian become a bitchy, quasi-fash, free speech asshole? Just tell some fucking jokes. And look, listen, I saw like Dave Chappelle has been trashed the last couple of years, going on this anti-trans crusade because people dared to mildly criticize him, and then turning that into his whole stand-up act for years. To Dave Chappelle's credit, he was saying the other day, "Fuck Israel" and "Free Palestine," and of course people were freaking out. But critical support for Chappelle on that one. Yes, stand up with Elon Musk. Dave Chappelle has been embarrassing himself a lot over the last couple of years, but he got this one right, and of course everyone's freaking out. And of course they do the usual, like, oh, now he's having to meet these Jewish groups want to meet him now, and we know these Jewish groups are Zionist groups, as usual. When it comes to policing what people are allowed to say and what counts as anti-Semitism and what doesn't. Those are the people that we have allowed over the last couple of years to set the terms of the discourse. The Barry Weisses of the world. The Columbia dipshit professors of the world. The hints were there all along when it comes to Chappelle. I don't know. I'm conflicted about that, I guess, Larry, because I used to be such a huge fan of his. I think that's the absurd thing about Chappelle is that he left Chappelle's show at the height of his popularity and left a lot of money on the table doing so because he saw what the audience was, and he thought it was developing these like predominantly white reactionary audiences that wanted kind of an excuse to tell these kind of racist jokes, and he was like, I don't want to have any part of that. That's a creative decision that I think takes a lot of integrity. And now that's the absurd thing about his turn the last couple of years is that he's catering to all those exact same people, and he doesn't even seem to realize this. But credit to him for getting this one right. And I hope he does not apologize, and I hope he tells them these groups that are now meeting him to educate him about anti-Semitism, I hope he tells them to fuck off. Yo, imagine penis but girl, a 60-minute comedic TED Talk presented by Mr. David Chappelle, Netflix. Bro, just leave it on the desk and take as much gas from the vault that fits in your limo. Gervais as well. Back up the truck. This is genius. Look at this genius subversive commentary. The brave free speech stance of, I don't like trans people. It's very brave. Just like it's a very brave stance to be like, I support Israel's right to defend itself. Look at how brave I am. Look at how brave I am. I'm saying Hamas bad, and I'm also saying Israel bad. I'm so brave. Really going out on a limb there. Yeah, exactly. It's really speaking truth to power. But in this case, Chappelle actually was. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I hope he does stop that bullshit. I'm not counting on it, but did you see the list of celebrities that signed the free hostages document? Yeah, there's some really disappointing names on there. I saw as well people sharing images of like people tearing down these missing person posters for the hostages. And the fact that there's people in these pro-Palestinian groups are going to tear down these posters, and that's because people are filming that and being like, oh, that's disgusting. What do people think about that? Because really, to me, it's like if you put up a missing persons poster in London for whoever has been taken hostage by Hamas, you're not actually trying to help find that person. Like they're missing persons posters, and they're not in London. Like we know where they are. We know what happened to them. Really, it's just those posters are a way to like use those hostages to demand the ongoing genocide that's continue unabated. That's what those posters are. So they should be torn down. They're not actually like, oh, can you help me find this person? We know where they are. It's not actually like meaning anything other than we demand that the genocide continues. Yeah, let's make room for the 10,000 Palestinian hostage posters. For sure, if we want to be equal about this. They're plastering them all over Palestinian neighborhoods, and there's no calls for ceasefire, nor reference to any missing Palestinians. Yeah, so I've seen people moralizing about that. I saw Ryan Grimm saying, what's wrong with people? What's wrong with people tearing down these posters? It's like, it's just pro-Israel bullshit. I mean, that's all it is. I'm sure it was I've seen carbon copies of those posters in Toronto. It's clear this was a planned strategy from the get-go. For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Why do you have a Ryan Grimm emote? Matt, what is with that? Yeah, it's performative bullshit that helps nobody. And people are tearing them down. And people are saying, well, how could they do this? How could you turn on these posters? Like, that's all it is. They're all just pro-genocide posters. We know where these people are. They're not in London. They're not in Toronto. Yeah, who's finding one of these hostages in Toronto? We know where they are. If you've listened to the stories from these survivors from these kibbutzes and these released hostages, it seems like Israel is the one that's killing way more of them. Like we were saying, they're talking about these released hostages and what they've been saying as like the worst propaganda disaster in their history. They don't want these people released. That's the last thing that they want. The last thing that they want is more hostages being released and being like, yeah, I was treated pretty fairly. Oh, and by the way, the IDF was like shooting at us with tanks and like getting in major gunfights while we were there. By the way, that's the last thing that they want. To be fair, supporting Palestine is a bad career move. To be fair, putting career over genocide is a coward move. That's right. And that's, people were able to be on the fence before, Jamae, like that's what I've been saying. I get it. It was a sort of tenable position to be there on the fence before. Can't anymore though. Even when it gets tough, even when there's this big effort to ensure that anyone that speaks out about this has career consequences. You got to get off the fence. You can't do it anymore. They love this shit. It's a great excuse to do to the Palestinians what they've always wanted, for sure. I mean, it's like as soon as the October 7th started, all the machine just got, the whole like propaganda machine got turned on to manufacture consent for them to do exactly what they've always wanted to do, which is what we're seeing right now. The Israeli government doesn't even want the family of the hostages to talk, just use them as a prop. Like Baldwin's Ghost, even like, there are these families of these hostages that are trying to get meetings with Netanyahu and he won't even meet with them. There was that ridiculous story about the fact that like there's this one guy that came in that was like, yeah, actually I'm from one of the hostages families as well. And I think it's good what you're doing. And it wasn't even, there was no connection to the hostages. It was someone that like works for Netanyahu. Like that's how absurd this is. Rocks. It is a clown show. It is a fucking clown show. It's absurd. They think we're stupid, but we're not stupid, are we? Apparently a lot of people are, but we're not. That's why we come here to this program. Because we, unlike everyone else, are immune to propaganda. Frankly, like the whole stating, like the statement, you're not immune to propaganda, I think the last couple of weeks has shown that applies to everybody. I've felt it myself. That crazy feeling that you get That crazy feeling where you start to doubt your own thoughts, your own analysis. You know, have you experienced that over the last couple of weeks? Am I wrong? Am I on the wrong side of this? That's what they make you feel. It's really scary, and it's really confusing and disorienting when that happens. That's why it's more important than ever that we keep congregating with one another here and in person as well at one of these protests. I'm not sure what I would do, young Mantic, honestly. I think you have to. I'm not one of these big like combat liberalism people where it's like every single person when you ever hear express this like counter-revolutionary or reactionary belief, you have to like immediately go after them. I do think like we have to have uncomfortable conversations with people even when it makes them uncomfortable, even if it makes us uncomfortable, and it makes me deeply uncomfortable to have some of these conversations. But like, if we support this movement, then that's the least we can do. That's the bare minimum that we can do is be on the right side and say the right thing, even when it does make us uncomfortable, or even when it makes people that we know uncomfortable. You know the song makes me cry. Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Maggot. It's the goodbye music, okay? I got some goodbye music. So people know that it's the end. But thank you again, folks, for watching today and every day. I really appreciate everyone that's been tuning in over the last couple of weeks and has been supporting the show. The goodbye music eventually comes for us all, it's true. So thanks everyone for watching and for supporting me. Seriously, it really means a lot and it helps me keep going, you know? I feel very proud that I'm able to do this every day and talk about this stuff every day, and I could not do it without you. I could not. Let's see your Sankaras. Don't forget to set your fantasy lineup. I did the set the weeks lineup thing. So I should be good. I didn't check my results last night. Thanks, folks. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.